Good evening, everyone. This is a public meeting of the Board of Adjustment, the Borough of New... Oh, hold on. Someone has a phone near their microphone?
Down there too. Everybody check.
If you have a phone near the microphone, you have to take it away. Put it in your pocket.
Yeah, not on the desk. Thank you.
What does it do?
Better? Okay, thank you. This is a public meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Borough of New Providence, County of Union, and the State of New Jersey. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in that a notice was made in conformance with Section 13 of the Act. I'd like to introduce Margaret Kuntz, our Board Secretary, and ask Margaret to please take the roll call.
Chairman Naylor.
Present.
Mr. Armidswell.
Present.
Mr. Grove.
Mr. Grove is here.
Mr. Morgan.
Here.
Mr. Payne.
Here.
Mr. Rossi.
Here.
Mr. Sorokin.
Present.
And Mr. O is not here.
Thank you. Also representing the borough this evening are our experts, Keith Lynch, our zoning official, McKinley Mertz, our professional planner, and Marie Raffay, our professional engineer. You'll also notice that we have Amanda Wolf to my left, our board attorney, with us, who will guide us through any legal issues this evening. If you're scheduled for a hearing before this board tonight, it's most likely because you want to make changes to your property that are for some reason not in compliance with our local ordinances. At this meeting, you'll be asked to give sworn testimony describing what it is you wish to do, where you run into challenges with the ordinances of our borough, and why you feel you should be granted a variance. Members of the board will then ask you questions about your plans and requests. Through our questions, we're assuring that the information necessary either to approve or deny your request is made part of the public record. Please note that any comments made by any one or more of the members of this board are simply their own opinions. Those opinions should not be construed as the board's suggestion to you to try to change your design of your application in any way, shape, or form, nor does your decision to act upon that opinion or suggestion guarantee the board's approval of your application. After our questioning, we'll open the floor to anyone else who wishes to ask questions that pertain directly to that testimony that was given. Those questions must only be challenges to or clarification of the prior sworn testimony. At the end of all testimony and questions, there will be time for personal comments from the public, either for or against the application. Okay, we have tonight a carried public hearing from 4 previous evenings, August 21st, September 11th, October 16th, and December 18th of 2023, Redwood ERC, New Providence LLC, 535 and 603 Mountain Avenue. And Mr. Pantelli representing the group.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be back before you. We have been hard at work with respect to some modifications of the plan that you'll hear about. They're actually on an exhibit that's up, which we'll identify and mark momentarily. But you'll see that we have been using our efforts to be as responsive as we can to various points that have been raised in the course of the prior proceedings, including we have determined to eliminate the gatehouse that was causing some consternation while the traffic engineers had opined that there was adequate circulation and stacking with it. We sensed some level of concern about it. Bottom line, we have eliminated the gatehouse as well as associated driveway widening and removal of some mature trees that would have been required as a byproduct of that driveway widening. I won't get into all the details that are shown on that plan. I want to steal the thunder of Mr. Tobia, who's with us tonight, our land planner, of course, who will introduce and identify that plan and walk you through a handful of revisions that we've made on that plan. We've already had testimony, of course, from our architect, Tyler Depew, from our engineer, Rob Strecker, our landscape architect, Amal Deshpande, our traffic engineer, John Harder, and John Mann, VP of Regional Operations for Erickson. So it's our hope to conclude the hearing tonight with testimony from our land planner, who will address the fairly minimal variance relief associated with the application, number one, and number two will, as I just indicated, address some of the revisions that we have made on this Exhibit A20 for our application for amended preliminary and final site plan approval, which you recall is for a reduction in the scope and scale of the overall CCRC. It's currently approved at a total of 1,193 living units. That will go down to 975, or if we do the proposed conversion of some 45 independent living units to 85 healthcare units. The 1193 in that case would go down to 1,015, still a reduction of 178 units or 15% of the total that are currently approved. So if there's no questions for me at this point, what I'd like to do is have Mr. Tobia present to you this evening.
Sure, just a few things. I did
Sure.
review the notice. It was sufficient as to form and content and timeliness, so the board does have jurisdiction. I do want to note that Mr. O is recused on this application, so unfortunately you have to take a seat with the other members of the public. And other than that, I think I already swore our board professional, so if you would raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And your name and address for the record?
Michael Tobia, T-O-B-I-A, the applicant's planning consultant, 92 Overlook Road, Morriston.
Thank you.
So, could you briefly describe for the board the nature of your involvement in this project and your professional qualifications?
So I've been on this project since 2012, representing this applicant with all the apps that have been before you, 2012, 2015, 2017, 2021, and this current plan. Doing all the things that us planners normally do, which is a review of zoning, review of the site plan, architectural plans, the various zoning metrics that Mr. Pantel just explained to you, as well as attending all of the hearings that we've had since last August, I believe.
And your professional planner's, your license remains in place and in good standing with the state?
Licenses were just renewed 3-4 weeks ago, so my license is in good standing. You all know I've been before the board many times, been in practice for over 40 years now. I need to admit, doing just this type of work for the entirety of that 40-year window.
So we would ask that Mr. Tobia's credentials as an expert land planner be accepted by the board.
Yes, so approved as long as there's no objection from the board? None? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So what we're going to do is start, board members, with a new exhibit, A20, which is up on the monitor now. Mr. Striker is going to help us with the graphic. It's dated April 9th, and it is called an overall land plan, I think. Let me see.
Neighborhood layout.
Overall neighborhood layout plan, okay? This is essentially identical to everything you've been seeing for months now. On the right, in all the heavy black line, is what we call neighborhood 2, also known as lot 1801. That's really the subject of the application in terms of the major density reduction in the overall project. And on your right, neighborhood 1, which is lot 1701, that's what you see fully built out in the field if you drive by the site right now. There are a few changes as we've digested this thing over the last many months. We'll go through them, and Rob, if you could zoom in on neighborhood 1 first, please, as best you can. We'll start with the most significant change down at the bottom, middle of the screen, and that, as Mr. Pantel told you, is the removal of the gatehouse. We heard a lot of resistance from the board at, I guess, the last couple hearings that there were queuing problems perceived with that gatehouse and cars and trucks backing up all the way to Mountain Avenue. After a lot of internal discussions, we decided to remove it entirely. So it's out. If you recall, as we did the review of that, the gatehouse came with a lot of complications. The driveway from Mountain Avenue was to be widened. Trees were to be removed on the left side or west side of the driveway. We had to build 3 parking spaces for employees at the gatehouse. We had a crosswalk proposed. We were going to relocate a sign. We were going to relocate a couple light stanchions on the east side of the driveway. The long and the short of it is all that has been eliminated with the decision to eliminate the gatehouse. Translation, that driveway is not changing at all from what you see in the field now. Okay.
And is also not unchanged from what was previously approved in 2021, correct?
Okay, so what you see in the field is what you get. There is one little tweak that we are going to do, and that's there's a light fixture on the existing driveway, Rob, you have pointer capabilities?
Yes.
So down on the driveway, pretty close to the intersection with Mountain Avenue, is an existing light fixture. This was to have been relocated when we were gonna widen the driveway. Now it's gonna stay where it is. We're just gonna change the fixture within that light fixture to provide better illumination at the intersection. That's gonna take us up to a foot candle limit of 1.3 foot candles at that intersection. The whole goal is a noble one, add more light at the intersection where people are making turning movements. Your ordinance only lets us get to 0.5 foot candles at the property line. This has been previously discussed as a requested waiver. Mr. Strecker correctly noted in his testimony, you need a little more light there because if you go 0.5 at that busy intersection, you're not going to properly illuminate the intersection. So we're requesting that. We want you to recognize that 0.5 foot candles is impractical for a lighting solution at the intersection, and 1.3 foot candles in the existing fixture is the appropriate approach to lighting design at the intersection. Okay, Rob, let's go to Amazon, please. So another thing we talked to you about for a while was a problem with Amazon, FedEx, UPS, and similar vehicles pulling into the horseshoe-shaped parking area in front of the building known as Union Square and jamming up the whole parking area and drive aisle. During our discussions with the board, we decided to add 2 loading spaces off to the south side of our ring road. And Rob shows them here with a big plan note that says approximate location of future delivery pull-off area. We have 2 stalls. Amazon, FedEx, all those folks will park there now instead of in the visitor parking area closer to the building. This will require no retaining wall. We've looked at that. It's basically going to be an expansion of the paved area near the ring wall.
How far is it from that proposed delivery vehicle space to the front door?
Rob, can you point? So we have,
From here to here.
yeah, so that's about,
I'm gonna say
I would
about
go
200,
150 feet or so.
maybe 200,
Well, we got,
in the over 100 range.
we'll measure it exactly and get that to you in a minute, okay?
Yeah,
Sure.
because there's a row, you can see, it's not very far at all, because in fact, you simply have to go across maybe about a dozen parking spaces that are head-to-head right in front of Union Square. So, it's
Right.
that,
That's your first 100 feet.
is your first, right.
So 20
that's
times
showing-
12.
So I'd say 200?
200. I was gonna say 20 times 12, you're already over 150, so,
206.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
So 200-ish.
200.
My question is simply, will there be enforcement of that, of the usage? Because, especially around here, most Amazon drivers are running 40 feet.
Sometimes, that's why we have hand trucks, okay? And this will be enforced. It will take pressure off of the parking in front of Union Square, which is pretty jammed up right now.
Yeah.
Between valet and visitors and so on. So operationally, we will have to make sure it's enforced. One thing we're gonna do as this moves along is examine directional signs throughout the complex. One might say UPS, Amazon, and so on, use these 2 designated stalls.
So it's your testimony, and the property owner is willing to
Enforced.
state that this will be enforced.
Yes.
Right? Because it is a problem at the front, we want to see it solved, you want to see it solved. It's not going to get solved if you guys don't enforce it, right? Because
Right.
if I'm an Amazon driver and I'm rushing and I'm trying to get to my next drop-off, I'm pulling up as close to the front door as I can until somebody actually forces me not to.
We will make a note of that concern. Maybe it becomes a condition of approval so you can review how we handle it once we finalize the site plan.
Thank you.
What's
Okay.
the size of those spaces? Is that just for a van or some of those larger box trucks that they run around in as well?
Rob, we want-
For a van, they're 8 by 25 spaces, 8 foot wide.
Bigger than a
25.
parking stall then, okay, so 8 by 25.
So those larger box trucks won't fit?
They fit in that.
They do fit?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, they said it wouldn't, okay.
25-foot lane, so a box truck will fit.
Okay.
Mr. Toby, is this the only drop-off for the new phase two? I mean, or are they you gonna have a designated area?
No, that's our only
That's
one
your
that we
only area,
designate.
okay.
Yes. Okay. In the upper right, Rob, we have eliminated the gate that we had shown on South Street. This was when we were trying to encourage everybody to come through the gatehouse down on Mountain. No more gatehouse, no need to restrict people going in on South Street. We will, remember, please, on South Gate, other side of the complex, still gets gated, and that will only be usable by residents and employees of the complex. No visitors and no deliveries. All the deliveries will be channeled in up through Mountain Avenue. So all that's doing is removing a gate. And then let's go to the back of the building. Glenn and I and team members have had extensive conversations with Chief N, Mayor Morgan and others about ambulance service to this complex and ambulance service in the community in general. We've also talked to the county representatives on the EMT level as well as Atlantic Health. We're now going to make available on this site, at the back, Rob will show you this with his pointer, one dedicated parking space, which already exists in the field, it's already striped and paved, that can be converted to a future ambulance parking space. On request, okay? The hope is the county is going to set this up as kind of an ambulance precinct, if you will, to serve this portion of the community. Going about a 1 or 2 minute stroll south from that designated ambulance spot, if you follow the pointer, we're also going to dedicate basically a break room and waiting room for EMT personnel as they await calls. This will allow EMTs in this area to importantly get right on Mountain Avenue as a connector east to west, get right on 78 if needed, and of course, be the first ambulance to service Lantern Hill if there's an emergency.
And again, on request of a third-party ambulance service.
Right, this is on request of a third party, maybe the county, maybe Atlantic Health, maybe someone else. But the whole idea of this, after extensive discussions with borough officials, was to take pressure off of the volunteer service here in town. Okay?
One
Mr.
question.
Patel, can you, when you say upon request, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure.
Can we request it now that it be on site?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the idea is that if a third-party ambulance service wants it and will utilize it, it will be made available, no problem at all, as shown on these plans. So it's available on day one to third-party ambulance service. We're continuing to work with third-party ambulance services to enhance service to Lantern Hill.
It's not our request, it's the
But is
Who are
that,
those third-party services?
Well, you just heard from Mr. Toby, primarily at this point, Atlantic Health Systems and Union County.
do you have commitment from any of them, or is, because I heard the word hope, and unfortunately, hope is not a strategy, right? And it's not a solution either.
We don't, well, with Atlantic Health, we already do have a service agreement in place, and so we are working with them to further enhance their service. Union County already provides service to Lantern Hill on a backup basis. This part of the county is actually somewhat underserved arguably by Union County, and we are having discussions with them about their enhancing their service to this part of Union County. It's a regional issue in no small part. We don't totally control it, but we have had productive discussions and meetings with both Union County as well as Atlantic Health. And we are committed to doing exactly what you see on the plans, and as well as to meeting periodically with the borough to address ongoing ambulance service needs and to provide the borough with a current ongoing tally of what's happening with respect to ambulance service on the property.
So, Mr. Pantel, I'm a resident. I feel sick. I pick up my phone and dial 911. What happens?
And can you speak into the microphone, please?
Yes, of course. So when you dial 911, the 911 operator, which at this now will be the county, will know exactly what services are available, because when a local service goes offline, so to speak, because they may not have volunteers available from 2 to 6 that particular day for whatever reason, they would go down the line. They would see that Atlantic Health may have availability, Union County will have availability, and they go to the facility that presumably is A, the closest, and B, has availability, which is why having this EMT resting area on the property, as well as having the ambulance parking space on the property, is certainly intended to enhance the likelihood of the ambulance calls being handled by that sort of third party which is physically there.
So they know that it's a Lantern Hill call. Am I correct in
Oh,
assuming that?
absolutely, because
They
as you
know that.
know,
Right. They know that it's Lantern Hill, and they know not to direct it here across the street.
well, as you know, the first question that the 911 operator will ask you is, where is your emergency?
Yeah, right.
So they will know exactly where the call is coming from. I understand too that their protocol is to notify our front desk of any emergency 911 calls that have been put in, and we automatically respond then internally with trained EMRs who are first responders to assess the situation, and there are times when 911 calls are canceled as a result of an on-site assessment.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so one
Microphone,
final
please.
plan change.
Microphone? Sorry.
He's always hogging it from me, he always does this. Left turn lane. One final change, which we've talked about a lot, is we have had a meeting with the county on the left turn lane leading into the site. It is shown on Exhibit A20. You see it there on the monitor, proposed left turn lane per input from Union County. They've asked for some additional information on this. We're working with them. We expect this will be the left turn lane, maybe tweaked a little bit, consistent with the last approval. This will be done before the issuance of the CEO for the third building on Neighborhood 2. Same idea as last time.
Same condition.
Same condition. Okay, but we showed it on E20 just to sweep through all those plans. Those are the plan changes. We think they've all been responsive to either this board or other borough officials in all the work we've been doing over the last few months. I want to go to Neighborhood 1 now, which
Just on, you said when you're going to phase this in, you said about building 3, so in the project scheme, where's that? Beginning, the middle, the end?
see, by time of CO for the third building, that has to be completed.
Okay, when do you envision that?
Okay, well, I think the intention is that the buildings 2.1 and 2.2 would be the first buildings constructed concurrently. So the third building, actually, in a sense, you could almost call it as the second building, because I think the intention at this point, it's not written in stone, but I do believe the intention is to build 2.1 and 2.2 simultaneously, and then before CO for the next building after that, which would be presumably 2.3 or whatever it happens to be, because the left turn lane would have to be in before that CO.
For the, you said, is it 2 or 3?
It was for the building after 2.1 and 2.2, but
Oh, building
2.1 and
after 2.1 and
2.2, I
2.2,
believe
okay.
the intention is that they get constructed initially simultaneously.
Okay.
So let's go through very quickly our very few variances that we're requesting. Neighborhood 1, which is on the right side of the monitor as you look at it now, is built. You'll recall from various witnesses, we proposed no change out there to the footprint or size of those buildings, no change to the parking lot or access. We have requested from you the right to do what we call the HCU option. the healthcare unit option, which would allow this applicant to take 45 of the previously approved independent living units and convert them to healthcare units. This is all in the name of flexibility, and if they were applied to Neighborhood 1, technically this is a modification of the variances you have approved in the past. We just wanted to pull your coattails to it. As I said, nothing changes physically. We do add more healthcare. We would then take up independent living units. This, under your ordinance, has a result of reducing density as permitted on the site and reducing parking demand by a slight amount. You'll recall in all previous cases, 2012, 2015, 2017, 2021, this board found senior citizen housing is inherently beneficial and consequently satisfies our planning criteria for the granting of a use variance. That remains the case with what we're talking about now, which is really just a slight tweak in Neighborhood 1. Now that the gatehouse is gone, what we thought would have been another use variance on the site, our relief for Neighborhood 1 is extremely limited just to that so-called healthcare unit conversion option.
Isn't it also possible that that conversion of 45 ILUs to 85 HCUs to 85 healthcare units could take place in whole or in part in Neighborhood 2 where the use is allowed?
That's correct. So also, in the spirit of flexibility for the healthcare units, which are really the vital units within the complex, this is where folks need the most amount of medical care, the most amount of nursing, and for the applicant to have flexibility in how to handle this option, we also request that it might be located in Neighborhood 2, AKA Lot 1801. Okay? In each case, when you do the math pursuant to ordinance, this is a reduction in the number of units that would be provided on the site. Okay? So let's talk about building length. Rob, 2.2, please. Rob's going to circle the building in the southwest corner of the site, and he's going to zoom in on it. This building, under your zoning ordinance, is too long. And there are two things going on. You have two controls in the code. One is that it cannot be longer than 340 feet if it has parking underneath it. And the other is it can only be 200 feet without parking. The building,
We say without parking, with no parking garage under it.
with no parking under, correct. Okay. What we've done here with what's proposed, and we, by the way, are at 2011 feet for building 2 that you see up on the monitor now.
I think you misspoke.
2,000, it's 200.
It's 311.
That's rather
Did I say
large.
2,000?
Yes, 2,000.
I was gonna say.
That's big.
So
doesn't
the
sound
building,
right.
just to be clear, so for this building, it would, 340 feet would be allowed if there were parking garage under it, but instead we're proposing 311.
311, sorry about that. So we need a variance here. We need a
Hold on.
variance
Hold on.
only
Just back up with those numbers again, the chattering and the different numbers.
200,
You started with what would be allowed if there was parking underneath it. What was that number?
340,
340.
340.
What's not allowed, or sorry, what's allowed if there is no parking?
200,
Okay. And what is this that doesn't have parking under it?
311.
It's 311 and it has parking under it?
It does not have parking under it,
Okay,
hence the variance.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, sir, helping me clear that up. So, couple things can happen here. One, we could have built parking under building 2.2 and achieved technical compliance with the ordinance. You've heard our parking analysis at previous meetings. We're over-parked on the site, okay? We don't need more parking. To achieve technical compliance with building 2.2 would be adding parking that's unnecessary, a cost-generative feature, and would not add value to the building. If you recall, we have parking under building 2.1 within close proximity to 2.2. The parking needs of the building are met. The other thing we could do technically would be to make building 2.2 into 2 smaller buildings that would comply, and yet then we lose an important feature of this project, which is connectivity among all the buildings on the site. Moreover, we explained through architectural testimony, the reason you have building length restrictions is when buildings get really long, they tend to get kind of boring, flat, expansive, and lack visual interest. Here, what you see on building 2.2 is a lot of jogs in the facade, a lot of breaks, a lot of bump outs, a wide variety of materials being used, and we concluded that this meets the broad intent of the ordinance to avoid boring-looking buildings. We've also designed a building with no garage door opening to it. Usually we don't like to see garage doors, and building 2.2 doesn't need garage doors, and consequently will be one notch up in terms of the attractiveness of the building. That's the only variance we need on the entirety of neighborhood 2. Coverage is met, impervious is met, building height is met, all setbacks are met, parking is met.
Lighting at the entrance of Southgate is met now too?
Say it again, please.
The lighting at the entrance of Southgate is
At
still, I thought
Southgate,
wasn't
that was
being met.
previously approved
Right,
in 2021 at 1.8 foot candles for that intersection. Mr. Strecker did the testimony on that. It was the same testimony now, it's a waiver, not a variance, but the determination was we needed more illumination there to properly light the intersection.
right.
That's a waiver, and unchanged since the last time.
So you're
we
saying
were
this is the only new variance, or it's the only variance, period?
No,
For
I
neighborhood
can
two.
clarify. The waiver for the driveway at South Gate Road is not, that condition is not changing. So what was previously approved there at 1.8 foot candles is not changing. The gate arm is not changing, and the lighting standard there is not changing. So there's no new waiver requested associated with that.
In addition to what already had been requested
Yeah,
and
this
approved in
previously
21.
approved, no change, no waiver required today.
Gotcha.
Okay. What's required today, you heard, is the waiver for the 1.3 foot candles at the Mountain Avenue driveway, the variance for building length, which we just discussed, and of course the use variance for the conversion of the units from healthcare to ILUs within neighborhood 1. And with respect to the variance on building length, couldn't it be said too that the building might even be more attractive without an elevation that requires a garage entrance and exit?
I just shared that with the board, and the answer to that is yes. Okay. Garage doors generally detract from architecture. So this building will not have a garage door at all. So like I said, it gets a little bump up in terms of its attractiveness. Okay. I want to wrap up with a discussion of two things. One, for the reasons stated, we promote a number of goals of the municipal land use law. We've explained this to you before. Goal A, I should say, we promote the general welfare of the community by providing an inherently beneficial land use. There's a ton of case law on this. All of it says senior citizens have unique housing and social needs that can only be met by the construction of communities like this. They not only get good housing, they not only get barrier-free design, they might get nursing, they get a lot of social activities, a lot of dining activities, and a lot of community that helps a demographic that sometimes can live alone with buildings with multiple steps and staircases and so on. And this gives them an opportunity to be in a state-of-the-art building designed for seniors. We meet goal C, which says provide adequate air, light, and open space. Recall, I just said we meet nearly every zoning standard required in the zone. Goal I has been covered by our architectural testimony. Promote a desirable visual environment. And what we have here are really good-looking buildings, really good-looking landscaping, and consequently, a good visual product. Most important goal in the municipal land use law is a unique one, Goal I, and it specifically targets this type of land use. And it says to encourage senior citizen housing, community construction. Okay, which means,
Jimmy, that's goal L.
Yeah.
Goal L.
goal L. What did I say, 3,000? Goal L, let me read it again, to encourage senior citizen community housing construction. It's the only goal in the whole land use law that specifically targets a land use. There's not one that even says build hospitals, or nursing homes, or schools, or restaurants. This is the only targeted land use in the goal statement, to build senior citizen housing. That's what this applicant is doing. And so now let's go briefly to the negative criteria. You all know for variances, you cannot grant a variance if you're finding a substantial detriment to the public good. And you cannot grant if you're finding a substantial impairment to your zoning ordinance and zone plan. Here what we have is a site, first of all, it's been approved by this board 4 times in the past. It's been recognized as an inherently beneficial land use 4 times in the past. The new site, Neighborhood 2, has had a recent zoning designation for it, specifically crafted for this use. It's called the CCRCO zone. Okay? So the town, at the governing body level, is specifically envisioning this type of activity on this site. The conclusion must be there is no substantial impairment to your zone plan or zoning ordinance. Now, through testimony, we've also shared with you everything about this project that you see now, 3 years since our last time here, has reduced density on the site, improved setbacks, lowered building coverage, lowered impervious coverage, and maintained a parking ratio that is in excess of what's required by the community. As a couple of examples, 2011, you remember we had a lot of input from our friends over on Ryder Way about closeness of buildings. You remember the shadow studies we had to do. Since that time, the new plan in the upper left of this exhibit A20 has reduced our setback, or improved our setback, I should say, from Ryder Way by about 65%. We've also, when we went along Mountain Avenue, by tweaking the plan and reducing intensity, improved setbacks off of Mountain Avenue by about 17%. In the back of the site, buildings were moved further from the R1 zone to the rear, improving that condition by about 34%. All these things say that what we agreed to approve in 2021 has simply gotten better in terms of area impact. We've decreased building coverage by 24%. We've decreased impervious coverage by 10%. Okay? So our amount of footprint has reduced as our setbacks have improved. Overall, in terms of density, in real simple numbers, our density on the new neighborhood has gone from about 23.8 units per acre to only 18. This was in exchange for more amenities, more open space. You heard that from prior witnesses. So all of our zoning metrics here suggest we've improved an already approved project in terms of area impact. And I think I'm about ready to wrap up. Mr. Pantel, I think we've covered everything I wanted to share. I'm just going to look at a couple other things, board members. I think I've told you on parking, We've lowered our demand for parking. Right now, what you see on this overall plan is 1,322 parking spaces with 1,056 required. We know we have plenty of parking. We know we have plenty of underground parking. We're going to comply with your electric vehicle charging requirements as well. Mr. Pantel will tell me if I missed anything.
No, I think you've done a very good job in covering the key points, but we certainly are open to questions for Mr. Tobia. Thank you.
We used to have a nursing facility on site. Is there going to be any nursing? Nursing, quote-unquote, nursing?
Yes, yes, there
stage?
is. The CCRC includes, of course, independent living units, as well as assisted living units, as well as a nursing wing, and as well as actually memory care facility as well. So you have that continuum of care. There already are nursing home type beds within the unit and a really very nicely designed wing inside the building. That will continue. And the conversion to healthcare units could potentially result in even additional nursing bed units depending upon need.
On that, on the assisted living units, are those only going to be available to residents or as well to outside members, outside people?
Well, people can move in who are not currently in independent living units. So I think the question often comes up more in the context of the nursing beds, that there are times when if there's an available nursing bed, it can be used by somebody who's not a resident in an independent living unit. And I suppose you could have a similar situation for assisted living, or for that matter, somebody may just want to move into Lantern Hill and start in an assisted living unit, given their particular needs. Or they may view that they're going to move into Lantern Hill in long-term in a nursing bed. That's also conceivable. But yes, those facilities, so you don't have to be an existing Lantern Hill independent living unit resident necessarily to move in, to utilize those higher levels of care.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question about the left-hand turn lane, if we can go back to that real quick.
Sure.
Zoom
Okay.
in on that for you.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think it's a crucial thing that we have the left-hand turn lane. It sounds like you guys do too. It's incorporated in here, and in the last, we saw in the appendix, I think there was a visual there, a really detailed visual in the traffic plan. One thing I just want to clear up, just so it's 100% clear to me and the public, is in the last letter from Chief Henn, he said that current Union County initiatives do not call for this left-hand turn lane to be added to Mountain Avenue, and that future concept plans reduce lanes on Mountain Avenue. Now, I know we have the updated letter from the county, so can you just help me understand that dichotomy? Is it true that current plans still from the county do not call for this left-hand turn lane?
The county actually is working on that left turn lane, and they have encouraged us to accommodate it on the plans that you see in front of you, and we will be pursuing a county approval. We already are pursuing county approval, and will continue to pursue a county approval for the implementation of that left turn lane in Mountain Avenue into the site. So by no means is it a dead letter. It's very much a live issue, and bear in mind too, the risk is on us. We're putting our money where our mouth is. We're saying that it has to be put in before the third building in neighborhood 2, and you've heard too that third building, as a practical matter, may end up being the second building, because buildings 2-1 and 2-2 may be happening simultaneously once construction does commence.
But who actually constructs the lane?
The lane could be constructed, that's ultimately a decision for the county, but in a situation like this, it's not uncommon for a developer to be constructing a lane.
Okay.
Pursuant to a developer's agreement with the county, I suppose the county could do it with a contribution from us, but that's ultimately within their jurisdiction, and we're not walking away from that responsibility whatsoever. We realize that in light of our prior commitments, that left turn lane should be put in before the third building, and we're prepared to accept a condition of approval, just as we had in the 2021 approval, that has to be done before CO, as I said, for the third building.
And so is there anything else that you need to show the county vis-à-vis this left-hand turn lane? There is, right? They still need to make an approval?
Yes,
So
they
is
still-
it possible that you could go to them and they could say, well, hey, actually, things have changed. We actually want to reduce the amount of lanes, or, and then in which case, then you would, by your own, you know, you wouldn't be able to open, essentially. So how would you square that?
Yeah, well, to answer your first question,
Yeah.
are there other things that we have to do in order to implement it with the county? The answer to that is yes. We have to undertake the actual design of that left turn lane. We take it from a schematic level to a more detailed, engineered, fully engineered level, so it could be approved by the county in conjunction with the review by the county professionals. And that would result in actually the county site plan approval for this project, showing that left turn lane to be implemented before the third building. And the county is aware of that timing, and they have no reservation that has been expressed to us about the timing. They're fine with that timing, we have been told.
Okay, and so if in the probably unlikely case that they go and they say, hey, you know, because it's going to be a couple of years, things change, you know, actually, we don't want a left-hand turn lane, we're going to make a huge bike lane or something, we want to, whatever they're going to say,
Right.
then in which case, you know, the resolution says that you need the left-hand turn lane, so you'd have to come back to us, like, is that correct?
You are 100%
Okay.
correct. It's not an uncommon situation at all
Yeah,
to have an approval from a local zoning board or planning board, subject to a subsequent approval from county planning board. And if things don't pan out the way we envisioned, yeah, then we would obviously have to come back to you, but we don't expect that that would be the case. I frankly had never seen that happen in any of my applications over the years, but it always is a theoretical possibility. If the county
Okay.
just won't approve it, and we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, we would have to come back and ask
yeah.
for some relief.
Well, there's a lot of changes, you know, on that road, right, you know,
Yeah.
with the building across the street, you know, who knows, it could be all different things. Now, the other question I had was, and I don't know, again, you tell me, I don't think you have the authority to just throw up signs per se, but it occurred to me that, you know, as you're going to double the size essentially of this property, you know, you'll have a lot of cars coming off 78, you know, up, you know, make a right onto Mountain off Diamond Hill Road, you know, visiting their loved ones. Maybe it's the first time they've been there. And the left-hand turn lane is crucial so that they're not just, you know, dead stop on a 40-mile-an-hour road. What would also be helpful, which we haven't discussed before, I think, would be some type of signage, and I don't know if it's 200 feet or 300 feet or 100 feet that says, did we already have that?
You
Okay,
do have
okay,
that. You do
perfect.
have it.
I missed that
It's
in
the
the
sign on Mount
1,000-page documents that we've been reviewing, so
Before
perfect,
we
just want to get that on the record. And how long, and just, I know this has been 4 times now we've been here, so again, just for the public so we understand, how long do you think the project will take from first shovel in the ground to ribbon cutting?
I don't think I can predict that with great, you know, with total specificity. There's any number of things. It's obviously a multi-phase project. We've put in the phasing plan as part of the site plans that we've given to you. And it allows, you know, some variation in the sequence, but for total timing, I just couldn't really estimate exactly how long it takes. It's obviously going to be a function of market demand for it. There's no doubt about that. Nobody wants to see empty CCRC buildings built. Erickson doesn't want to see that, and I'm sure the town would not want to see that. That's never a healthy condition.
So you probably have a milestone or a goal, right, in mind? No?
Or a budget. What's the budget? I mean, usually it's
I'm going to give you a moment.
Steve, would your question be till this project is totally built out, or just to this first opening, which is the first 2 buildings?
I guess both. My question was initially the completion completely of neighborhood too.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have an estimate?
Well, that's been market-driven in the past.
Well,
If they don't sell the units, they don't build the next building.
well, I guess, no, I didn't, okay, well, that's what I want to get for the
Do-
record,
do-
I want to understand that. I mean, it
Keith-
seems like there's obviously, they're expecting the market to react positively, so.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we
Keith,
have
do we-
obviously spent a lot of time and money getting to this point.
Right.
You wouldn't want to begin to guess how much time and money we have spent to get to this point. So obviously Erickson is committed to this. Given the size of the project that we are proposing, I think it's probably fair to estimate something like a 5 to 7 year line to fully complete neighborhood too.
Okay, and the left-hand turn lane, being contingent on that building, right? That's,
For the third building.
right, so that would be at what point within, and would you estimate in year 2, year 3,
Um,
of the 5 to 7
It
years?
could be something like maybe years 3 to 4, maybe 3 to 5.
The reason I ask that is because you're gonna gradually start, as buildings go up, and then you're gonna, so there's just gonna be more
Absolutely.
traffic. I mean, it would be great, frankly, I think if there was a left-hand turn lane now, you know what I mean? Which is
Yeah,
okay, there's not, but, so I just, my hope is that the left-hand turn lane happens sooner rather than later, you know?
I was just gonna ask that question, Mr. Rossi. I know you're counting on the CO of Building 3, but what if the county comes in and says, Mr. Pantella, you can start next week? You know, I know they're not gonna do that, but
Right.
can the left-hand turn lane be put in earlier? Would you do that? Because to Mr. Rossi's point, I mean, I've seen near misses
Yeah,
coming down
absolutely.
Mountain Avenue a lot where people, oh, there's the turn, they stop, and, you know, I'm sure Chief Henn probably can share data with accidents that may have been there, but
Well, we've shared with the county our timeline, and the county, interestingly enough, the county has been looking at Mountain Avenue, not just in the context of Lantern Hill, but they've been looking at Mountain Avenue overall, regardless of Lantern Hill, in terms of possible modifications. It's possible that there would be what they call a road diet, which would change that 4-lane roadway to a 3-lane roadway in effect, 1 lane east and west, 1 lane east, 1 lane west, with the center turning lane, which still gives us the left turn into the site. It's possible that it might be like a 5th lane, if you will. One just doesn't know exactly where they're going to end up on it. They know our timing, and they have advised that that timing is totally realistic and consistent with theirs. So it's not like something that's going to happen overnight. I don't want to hold out a false hope that it's going to happen, you know, within the next 6 to 9 months. The county is just not there right now to do that. So I think it's best that we just continue to keep that condition in place, but we have no problem continuing to inform the town about what is happening with the county. It's our intention to pursue that county approval, because frankly, we want to put it behind us rather than have it remain as an open issue down the road.
Yeah, to that end, I have a question or clarification, like maybe a combination of both. Maybe a combination of both, question and clarification. So the county, if you were to ask the county for their plans for the road right now, like what are you planning to do on Mountain Avenue today? Like what's decided? This left turn lane is not part of their current plan, right? Is that a fair statement?
It's something that they are currently envisioning.
They're currently thinking about,
Well, I think more than thinking, I think
currently
they have
preparing
done
for,
some
but
internal.
but it's not committed.
Yeah, correct.
So
They
it's
have
fair
done
to
some
say that what-
internal planning, they have devoted some resources to it as well. They've brought to our attention what they are doing, which fortunately is consistent with what we are proposing as well. So the two, it's nice that the two dovetail.
I know, I get that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work being done that includes this left turn lane as a consideration, right? But it's not committed.
We are committed to
It's not
pursuing
committed
this
by the
approval,
county.
but the county has not issued, it wouldn't be committed by there's not a commitment on the part of the county until we had a final site plan approval for it. Once we get that site plan approval for it, then it's gonna go in, because at that point, the county is saying, yes, you have to put it in that timeline that we just discussed, and we'll have to do it.
Right. But the county could change its plans entirely after all this research and say, you know what? We want to make this a much more residential road to match the stretch in Berkeley Heights and the stretch further down in New Providence, which is 2 lanes, right? Encourage slower, traffic, less, passing. They could say that. Is that a fair, is
I
that
suppose
true?
anything is possible.
Good.
They're
You
not-
you said it. Good. Anything is possible,
Anything is
right?
possible.
Because there's no firm commitment yet. So I guess my question is, knowing how hard you guys are working on this, and I believe that it'll come, I personally, right? However, got to prepare for all of the options. Instead of building a building and then potentially leaving it empty until you go through a bunch of more hearings because the county said no to the left turn lane, what if it was dependent on starting building 3 as a condition? Because I just feel like building a building and then being told you can't occupy it because of an unmet condition is just asking for trouble, right? It creates artificial pressure on you, on this board. When you come back, you guys are going to be, pushing hard for us to give an approval to a new set of conditions because the building's already built.
Okay, give me another half a moment, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a different perspective on it, but we'll wait for Pantel. Hey, Mr. Pantel, before you,
Sure.
let me ask you a question before you say what you're going to say.
Okay.
Suppose we were to say, you will hold you to do whatever the county tells you to do in X years, because nobody knows.
Well, maybe my answer, though, will resolve.
Okay.
So the answer to the point that was just raised by Mr. Amonspoll is that we would agree that we would not undertake construction of that 3rd building unless we had that county site plan approval in place.
That makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I really like that, appreciate that.
All right.
I don't know if the rest of the board thinks that's a good
Yeah.
idea, but I like that.
I think that's very realistic in light of it being somewhat in flux, but you will commit to something at the due time.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially what it boils down to is, before we get a building permit for that 3rd
Right.
building, we have to have that county site plan approval.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
And just so we understand, so the 3rd building, now again, the 3rd building is the first building in neighborhood 2, or it's not? So I don't,
No,
I guess
it's
what
the-
I don't
it's the-
understand.
It's the
It's
third
the
building.
third, no, I know,
neighborhood
so,
too.
so I guess what I understand, Mr. Amonspoll, that's, you guys had said the second building certificate of occupancy, correct? That was your initial?
No.
No,
Third.
Third.
Oh, okay,
What I-
I'm sorry.
what I-
So I mean, I guess I think that's you're saying that the beginning of the building, is that right?
So building 1 and 2 are built in one phase.
Right.
So Mr. Pantel was trying to say, before we start phase 2, which is building 3,
Yeah.
we will,
Yeah, I understand, I guess I don't think it's that much difference from what they proposed.
I just don't
so-
want an empty building sitting there.
Well, I would go, no, I guess all I'm saying, and we could discuss it later for any,
No, the point I think is well taken. You don't
Yeah.
want an empty building sitting there. You don't want us coming back saying, after we built this building, which is empty, saying, well, we can't get county approval, but give us a CO anyway. So
Pretty much, yeah.
that problem gets off the table with what we just, in the light of the discussion that we just had. So we're saying no building permit for that 3rd building until we have the county site plan.
well, we could, yeah, I mean, we could talk about it later when we think about any contingencies about the application, but I mean, I would say that doesn't go far enough. I would say, we could say, building permit for the first building of the phase. I mean, again, if we feel like we need it now, if it's not great now, I mean, we can think about that. That's why, I mean, I understand what you're
Yeah, we
saying,
can
but
do
I
that.
think it's a quarter of an inch left, a quarter of an inch right, but we might need to go, a couple inches to the left on this, so. Another question on the ambulance service. So, past resolutions have memorialized the fact that you are to have a third-party, contract with other third-party or third-party vendors, Atlantic Health, et cetera. Is that right?
Correct.
And you've done that, right?
Yes, and we're prepared as a condition of this approval to continue to provide the borough with evidence of such an agreement.
But what's changed? What's different? I mean, essentially, what I don't really understand is the same resolution, contract with a third party clearly hasn't worked out, and that's the plan again. So help me understand that.
Well, first of all, as you heard in prior testimony, in no small part, the issue was caused by decrease of EMT employment due to the pandemic. There was dramatic reduction in EMT staffing. It was not just an Atlantic Health issue. It wasn't just a Lantern Hill related issue. It was a regional problem, which Atlantic Health has been addressing. You heard, I think, in prior testimony with this new academy that they formed to bring in on a quarterly basis more and more EMTs to increase their staffing, number one. Number two, we are proposing, as you heard, is on-site ambulance stationing along with EMT resting space.
But it's really just a parking space, isn't it?
Well, it's a parking space coupled with an EMT, space for EMT personnel to rest between calls. So if we can get Atlantic Health or Union County or other third-party provider to avail themselves of that, it's like having a precinct, if you will, on the premises. We also we're committed to continuing to meet periodically with the borough, to continuing to address that issue, to provide ongoing tally of what's happening on the site, in addition to providing what you've seen on the plan. And I think the borough understands that this is a regional issue. Union County, I think, it recognizes that they haven't been providing the sort of service here that they've been providing in other parts of the county where they have precincts in Scotch Plains. They're serving the Kenilworth area, but really not so much this part of Union County. But we are working with them, and I think this is a very meaningful advancement and enhancement to the ambulance service, intended in a way to reduce any impacts on local squads.
Okay. And one thing that I just want to be really clear for the record, so, I forget if it was the last time or the time before, you were talking about all the medical staff that you have. I think was 80%, I think it was, of something like that, of residents use your own physicians and medical team. There was testimony about a lot of pride in that, which I totally understand. What I don't understand, and it's an honest question, just help me understand. It seems to me that having an in-house, on your payroll per se, ambulance, which is only driving someone essentially 10 minutes down the road, would probably be one of the least complicated medical things that you guys are doing there. So why is that not something that you've proposed? Why are you so against having your own ambulance service?
I think that question was raised previously. It's not just a matter of having a driver and take people out. It's a whole nother very specialized and not uncomplicated sort of operation to have ambulance service conducted by the CCRC. Erickson has multiple CCRCs throughout the country. They looked at this carefully. It's not something that they can do. It's not something that they have done in their many, many years of operation, probably over 30 years, I dare say. So we've looked at it.
But what is so complicated about it? So understand, we have people who are under 20 years old, fresh off their driver's license, not literally fresh, but relatively inexperienced drivers who are thankfully volunteering for our squad. It seems like not that complicated. So I understand we've talked about this before, but other than we don't want to, I haven't really heard any specifics. And I just don't understand, really.
Mr. Tobia, maybe you could also speak from a planning perspective. You've done a lot of these. How common is it to have an on-site ambulance staff?
I don't know if I've ever heard.
But before you answer that, can you also put in how uncommon with a volunteer squad, right? You have Ericksons all over the country, but I'd love to see how many are in areas that have volunteer squads.
Glenn and I think, can only speak to this project in New Providence. I don't know if I've ever heard of a dedicated staff for this type of job, sponsored by the applicant itself. Remember also, for all the pressure this puts on the borough, at the community level here on the site, this is about one call a day. And the thought of bringing in 1 or 2 vehicles plus 2 staffers for each vehicle to move 1 call a day seemed utterly impractical to us
And in fact,
operationally.
isn't it more than 2 staffers, because you, for 24/7 service, you need multiple staffers.
Oh, right, I'm saying 2 per vehicle, Glenn, so
Well, more than 2 per vehicle, because you have
for
24/7.
for 3 shifts, right?
You have 3 shifts.
Well, I
The
think
other
it's.
thing I want you to hear is in our discussions with the county, which were attended by borough officials, county officials, after we said, where would you ideally want this so-called precinct, this substation? Pointed at this site. They pointed at this site. And they said, because Mountain Avenue is great, we go east and west in a blink, we get on 78 in a blink. And at that time, they said, and we think you can give us a facility, meaning parking, plus the waiting room and so on.
Yeah, but you said, I mean, that's upon request. Why can't we just make that a condition saying, hey, we request that now? I mean, Ms. Tobia, I get it, it's 1 call a day.
Right.
But we have a town that has multiple calls a day. You're doubling the size of this facility, that's gonna be 2 calls a day. And it's just, that could be too many.
So I think we need to look at this a little differently. They are providing it. It's on the site plan that they provided us, but they can't force the county to go there, I think is the
I'm
point.
not saying the county, I'm saying
whoever
their
it
own
is.
ambulance service. You talk about complicated, you have a memory ward, you have, nursing, you have very complicated units within that. I don't know how much more, how much a ambulance service is adding complication to it.
The other thing we learned when Mr. Pantel talked about a regional issue was this was not viewed by county or Atlantic Health or anyone as a fix for Lantern Hill. It was viewed as a regional fix for Western Union County. Okay? In short, how to get more talent over to this side of the county. This is not a Lantern Hill problem as it was explained to me. It was a problem with daytime coverage by borough volunteers, as well as by just the volume of calls we expect to be coming in from New Providence and Berkeley Heights and Summit, with all the new housing being built in the area.
But you know what, Mr. Toby, I really don't care about what Union County wants to provide or not. I only care about our volunteers. And I think the load that will be present from an entire village of this size warrants its own service, because it's predominantly people that will have a higher need than the general population.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think what everybody's saying is, it's nice and good that the county is trying to address a need that exists, right? That is beyond the scope of the Lantern Hill problem. And it would be of great benefit to Lantern Hill's current issue with us as a community, New Providence that is, and our EMTs. If, and I heard ifs, if Union County, as much as they indicate they would like to have it there, they haven't committed to it. If Union County chose to put a precinct, substation, whatever, on the property, then that'd be great. Of course, they would also be using that 1 ambulance to respond to calls in Berkeley Heights and New Providence and Summit off property. The thing that I guess really rings to me is that the numbers that were given to us in previous testimony, 25% of the calls that the New Providence Volunteer Rescue Squad responded to were from Lantern Hill, right? So if you look at the population, Lantern Hill does not represent 25% of the New Providence population, right? So it is a significant burden on the volunteer rescue squad we have here in town. If you double the size of Lantern Hill and you don't double the rest of New Providence, then obviously math says that that 25% will go up to 35, 40, maybe 50%, right? that's just untenable without a solution that is known, not hoped for, not in the planning, not potential. It has to be figured out, right? With the left-hand turn lane, we're subject to the whims of the county too, but you guys, we've got a stake in the ground. You can't go past the second building without that problem being fixed. You had previous approvals without this much pushback on the rescue squad, and I think a lot of that had to do with lack of information maybe on this board's part. I'll say, I didn't have the numbers to be this animated about this issue, and I probably would have been if I'd had the numbers and I'd had the depth of understanding I have now, right? So I voted yes on things previously that maybe I wouldn't have if I hadn't seen a more concrete solution.
If I could, I think it's worth noting that, the police department, specifically, of course, Chief Henn, who's here tonight, was part of the communication that we've had with the county, and he rendered an updated report to the board April 24th, indicating in part that the borough endeavors to gain commitment from Union County on the number of personnel they commit on the western edge of Union County. While a specific agreement has not been made yet with Union County, we are comfortable with the pace at which Union County believes they may be able to provide additional support, coupled with the commitment of Atlantic EMS to continue to shoulder a larger load of the calls for service at Lantern Hill. The borough is hopeful that New Providence EMS will see a reduction in the number of ambulance runs to the facility. He recommends that the resolution continue to provide the requirement that we provide proof of a contract with the third-party ambulance service to provide emergency medical services and transportation from their facility. The resolution 2021-24 further memorialized testimony by Erickson of their commitment to reducing the burden on EMS. And lastly, he requests that the board further require that Lantern Hill maintain and provide to the Borough of New Providence a list of all medical transports and what ambulance agency provided the transport. We're prepared to do that. And then actually, finally, in addition to that, he requests, and we agree to this request, that Lantern Hill agree to language in the resolution that champions their commitment to achieving a certain percentage of ambulance transports by the third-party vendor. We're committed to that. We can't agree to any specific percentage as a condition of approval. It's beyond our control, but we have no problem aspiring to level of service by third-party providers. So this is, and Lantern Hill, is a major resident of New Providence as well. Our residents are paying, several $1 million a year. They're maybe one of the largest, if not largest, rateable in New Providence. Probably over $5 million a year of tax revenue now going in our real estate taxes. Substantial portion of that, of course, going to the borough. That might close to double in the future. So we could be talking about upwards of $10 million of real estate taxes that we're paying. So we're not looking to be a free rider by any means. Even putting apart the very clear fiscal benefit and presumed surplus that goes to the borough with this, we have been working hard and fast with the borough and your police department and your rescue squad to make very meaningful progress in making a real contribution to solving this regional issue. We're just not going to be prepared to try to create our own private ambulance service. It's not something I don't think any CCRC has done that we are aware of, including throughout the state. We had discussions with Erickson about that. So we would respectfully ask that the application be approved, subject to the conditions that I just outlined. We have no problem with that. And we would ask that the board recognize what we have done in this respect. It's not as if we've sat back and done nothing.
I think you've done a lot of great work, but this is such a critical issue. It's a concrete issue with no concrete commitments. That's the problem I have, right? Is that even Chief Henn's letter asks that, we, as a condition of approval, insist that you continue trying, right? There's no end to how much you can try and not get anywhere. And that's what worries me, is you can meet all the conditions that Chief Henn put in his well-written note. You can meet all those conditions without anything being fixed, right?
Well, I
That's
think-
what concerns me.
Yeah, I think,
There's only so much that we can do within our control, and we've gone the extra mile. We're continue to be prepared to go the extra mile
Well, I
on
think-
this issue.
go ahead, Bill, sorry.
It's just not some, we are not a rescue squad. And we are, however,
But you're becoming a city that needs a rescue squad.
well, we're a CCRC. We're not the largest one around. In fact, this is not Erickson's largest CCRC. Cedar Crest Village in Pequannock has 1,700
Okay.
units that have
Is that
been
a
completed.
volunteer or a regular squad on that one?
I'm not sure. I
volunteer.
think it's volunteer. It's
Thank you.
volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's volunteer?
And the other one?
Tinton,
Crest?
Tinton Falls is the other one, and Tinton Falls is larger than this one. I don't know offhand what their local squad is, but Mr. Lynch is correct. Pequannock is a volunteer squad.
Hey, Keith,
Mr.
are-
Pantel,
Mr.
with
Lynch, are
all
they-
due respect, it's one of those, well, the other kids are doing it kind of things, and I really don't care.
Well,
It's what we care about here, sir, and that's our point. I also don't agree with your comment where you say we've done everything we can within our purview. I disagree with that. I think you can do what we're asking if you chose to. And that's Mr. Amisbell's point and Mr. Rossi's point. So we disagree with that assumption.
Well, contractually, like, have you done anything with Atlantic to say, hey, you guys haven't been meeting your commitment to us, Erickson, for rescue squad, availability? How could you, I find it, hard to believe that you don't have some kind of contractual obligation from Atlantic to you to say, hey, we're gonna do this. I can't believe that your contract with them says, well, if you guys make it, it's great, and if you don't make it, it's okay too, and we'll pay you a boatload of money. I don't think you guys are in business like that, so is there some kind of contractual obligation they have to you to say, we are committed to make this, and if they don't meet that commitment, then what's the penalty?
Atlantic Health is a very valued and reliable service provider to us, and they are doing, we are convinced, the maximum that they can do, and they are committed to increasing, as I said, their ability to provide service to Lantern Hill. They have been doing that, and by the way, our number of calls this year has actually, I understand, it gone down somewhat in comparison to last year, presumably in no small part to our continued vigilance in terms of screening calls that we have been doing with our own on-site EMRs. So this is not something that we have taken lightly. For over the past 6 months, we have worked very hard with the borough, with your emergency services, with the county, with Atlantic Health, and it was our understanding that it's been recognized that this is a regional issue that we are certainly contributing, to which we're certainly contributing a meaningful part of the solution, but it's not something that we totally control. This is, as you previously heard, an inherently beneficial use, which by its very nature promotes the public health and welfare.
Yes, Mr. Pantel, I understand that, but the issue is, if this doesn't get resolved, it would be certainly
It will be a detriment to the
it would be a
public.
substantial detriment to the public, in which case, you wouldn't get approved. So I think that what we should do, Mr. Chairman, is we can, towards the end, we think about different various conditions. I'd like to see a similar condition as we have on the left-hand turn lane where, and maybe in this case, it's something like, the mayor, the chief of police, and the borough administrator have to sign off that this ambulance service is okay with them, and in 3 years' time or whatever it happens, before you can open any new buildings. I think something like that would be a condition that I would need to approve.
I don't see how that I could agree to that as I'm sitting here right now. I don't think that's consistent with the spirit or letter of the municipal land use law or for a variance of this type. I just don't think that is.
Well, Chief Henn's words in his previous letter was that it would pose a substantial detriment. Now, I understand his updated letter, it looks like, things looking pretty good here, so that's good. But this, as we sit here today, and so I would only want to make sure that in 4 years' time, whoever the chief of police is and whoever the mayor is, whoever the borough administrator is, for example, would agree to it, because we can't sit here today having no commitments, and so we'd have to, sign off on it later on.
Could I have a moment, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Could we have a 10-minute recess?
Sure. Okay, so 9:21, 9:30, how's that, 9 minutes?
Great, thank you.
9:30.
Would you like any more input on that point before you go have a conversation and come back with an answer
We're
that
always
maybe the
prepared
rest
to.
of us have something to add to?
Sure.
Because I think Mr. Rossi raised a really good point on that, and I think similar to the left turn lane, if you're willing to make a commitment to a go, no-go after building 2, let's say, where things are moving forward, but with everything else, but the ambulance situation still isn't resolved, in the opinion of the, borough leadership, like the chief of police, maybe a report from whoever runs the volunteer rescue squad, and the mayor as well, or whoever we think should be providing input. I think that's a good idea, and I think you should hear if other folks think that's a good idea too.
Could we also maybe, I know Chief Henn is here, and
I was
don't
gonna
know if
ask.
he'd be willing to, because I love this letter. The only thing I'm, the last sentence in paragraph 2, the borough is hopeful. I'd love to see that the borough is
I
confident.
think the momentum is all positive, right? I'm not trying to be
Absolutely,
a Debbie Downer.
absolutely,
I think the momentum
yeah.
is positive.
Yeah, no,
Hans-
We
yeah.
don't know what will happen.
Hans, I think you make an excellent and reasonable suggestion that's in between go away and sure. I think that's something to
Steve's
be
idea.
considered
I would love to hear
seriously,
from
and I'd
Chief
like to hear your opinion on it in 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah, so if you could give us 10 minutes.
Can I ask you one question before
Sure,
you
of
leave
course.
also? Does the county have any of these other so-called precincts anywhere else in the county?
They, yes, they have one in Scotch Plains where they're serving Plainfield. And they periodically actually come to have a ambulance station right across the street in New Providence. And I believe in Kenilworth, or Garwood, they're doing something similar as well.
So is it
Yes.
feasible for you, since you're building this out for them, to make a request to them that they actually have somebody there 24/7?
Yeah, we have already had discussions with them about, you heard from Mr. Tobia, where they would like to be. They mentioned this site could be a very good location with them, but, we've been working with them on that. We intend to continue to do that. You saw reference to that in Chief Henn's letter.
And in my opinion, if you can get them to commit to that, to be stationed there 24/7,
Yeah, that's a game changer.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but they're not gonna get that tonight or
but
the next few
I-
weeks, so maybe
You
make
know,
a
the
condition.
county, they look at everything regionally also. They understand this part of the county, I think it's fair to say, is underserved by Union County. That's me speaking, obviously not the county speaking, but I think that's fair to say. I don't think they would take great issue with that statement. So we have been working with them, have met with them. Their people are very responsive. So we are working toward that goal. And obviously, Chief Henn doesn't send in a letter as he did here and do that lightly in light of prior comments that have been made. So if we could have a 10-minute break. I would love to have.
That's good. One more thing, though, because I
Sure,
think
of course.
all of us would like to hear from Chief Henn. Do you want to hear from him first before you go out, or after?
I'd like to have our 10-minute break
Go ahead.
first.
Fine. All right, so 9:35.
Okay, thank you.
Get on the floor and just,
That's fine, I think I cut you off first. That's his talent. Yeah. Yeah, keep as many talents.
Anybody want some dinner?
Yes, same
Take
thing.
two.
You gotta get out there. You're fine. You're so, I was gonna say that, I'm always with you.
You're a well-dressed young man.
Nice, nice, nice. I know, I always find them in buried pockets.
Oh, yeah. Yes. They did. Oh, my goodness.
I cannot hear it.
She said.
I live across the street.
So my wife went to high school.
I cannot hear it.
And was actually friends with her in high school.
My hearing is fantastic. I can hear the band, I can hear the pool, I can hear all kinds of stuff. I get notices about fireworks that go off in town, the parade comes right past. Trust me, I'm pretty darn close to that pickleball court. I cannot hear it.
Never.
Amanda.
I hear a lot of stuff on Springfield Avenue.
They got to that months ago.
That's right.
All the real stopped.
See, they lost a lot of, they, not lost, but they removed a lot of trees in the community pool. Yeah, what's that, ash? Ash. Yeah, they have an ash board, is that what happened?
The town, people in town are upset, but they
Away from the court. Away from the court.
think about all the kids and things, people,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think they were in the ash.
Trust me, it's a pretty darn busy road, so, but I hear a lot of stuff.
It does, okay. Just
So
right.
you gotta get them down, you gotta get them down.
My neighbors across the street, they might hear it more. But I don't hear
They may not migrate another one, or another one as well.
I hear the
Gotta
guys
get 'em out.
all the time.
Unfortunately,
All the time. I hear basketball. I hear the kids going crazy in the pool in the summer.
They moved in a couple of boxes.
Directly across the street from it.
They said every 7 to 10 days.
Well, I think people think they're giving it away because they keep pulling people up north.
It's called copper, it's not the bug, it's not, it's like,
Because somebody was running the other day.
sports.
Yeah,
Because people are just picking it up. They've been doing the same thing on Springfield where the pool lot basically. They were coming over. Oh, yeah, there's some. They're big lots.
Just another son.
These guys are like, you know, coming with like pickup trucks and dropping this stuff. Your Fred Flintstone had everything onto the side.
Low light, all the things that it doesn't like, it may go in your water out.
They got a buddy in the other
Kids
kid
are screaming and everything all the time, you know, right?
But
If
yeah,
it's not optimal,
they finally moved
I mean,
it.
it's making it more susceptible to things coming on your farm.
Traffic that comes out of there.
It was there for a while.
So you say by improving, let's say, half of the things that are affected, you might be able to change the course of that plan?
Yes, if you improve.
Yeah, whatever those conditions are.
If you improve the things that make it not strong.
And I get noticed with
If you give it more light, if you know.
Less water somehow, get it
Improve
out
the
of
soil,
water.
or put in some other kind of nutrient. All those things will make it a stronger plant to resist.
Yeah, I hear that. But I'm within that range that they have to
Disease.
notice me, specifically for the worst, you know? Your man
Right
said
now, it's
to burn your house
vulnerable
down.
because it's feeling kind of poor. It's feeling kind of weak.
Did they get
That's
it
definitely
treated?
Catholic, so.
None of it, did they get treated?
Yeah, I know.
I guess, did we
I'm
put
listening.
those
I'm out there
permits
listening.
to them we shouldn't have?
Because I know you mentioned it a few times. But it hasn't been, in the winter, I'm sure nobody
How do they get
plays.
permits for something that we specifically did not allow?
Oh, that's a big deal.
You can bring it up. You can bring it up.
Because you can't just do applications, farm department, that wouldn't be right.
You could, I think you could.
It's a quieter space. You're at home. Yeah.
I think you could do one and not the other. They're separate.
Yeah, might do it, exactly.
It could impact some folks. I'm just saying my own experience.
People on
Not her.
Well, it's a job.
It's a job.
All of a sudden, it's a job.
Yeah, but I hear the best. And the pools.
Yes.
Yeah. But still,
Oh, he is up there?
tennis courts are a little first, so I don't usually hear it. Or the soccer.
Working. I didn't get it.
Football. The band. 100% can hear the band clear as
People
day.
live there.
Think I could do half the songs
Price tag,
myself.
demand, I'm thinking I'm paying this and I expect that response. When they're up there, it's a less of a price tag and
Sure,
they're
it
more
depends on what time you do
considerate or
it.
more
And then it was like, sometimes the cooking lights.
Good point.
You know, my son came back, 6 I was in the kitchen, and she came in, she was like, all those trees now, on the corner. I was like, wait, what? What corner? She's like, the new house that was built. That's what all the chainsaws and the tree things. Here I'm thinking we got it. And I walked outside and I looked at it, I was like,
So once again, they can't anticipate.
Signal for one of them. What's going on?
I was thinking of you the other day, while I'm driving past the Summit course. You were out there, on what, the weekends?
I go there on Sunday mornings. And,
Okay, Sunday mornings.
right now, we have the leaves are coming in, so we're having some longer in certain weeks. So I have some. I think I took 2 Fridays off to cover the shift Friday.
it's not like,
Okay.
I'm just there Sundays and Saturdays until my daughter gets back from college. Then she takes all the shifts.
Oh, it's her job.
It's really, yeah, it's not until I get this break. But I do Sunday
Yeah,
mornings.
the other one is, that's why the whole squad's got it.
That's good. It is good.
They've been cutting down. They cut down a bunch of.
Out there with the people.
It's just one day of dealing with people.
Bitson.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
There you go.
But they cut down half of them, like last year.
Out of your
And
house.
it was like last week.
Oh,
They cut-
really?
cut-
Oh, because of the extra. Okay.
That's where they would.
Well, you got a lot in there.
Already cut, which is crazy, that doesn't before the summer.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it would be nice, like, we're supposed to be a neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I went from living in the forest to living in the desert. Like all these trees and stuff. My neighbor has to have all, he was my example when everybody comes in here for these privacy fences.
Oh, really?
All this foliage, you could not see his house. And the other guy-
Summit does that there? That's the Summit that they use. Okay. We do Oakwood, yeah. Different weekend.
He was like, it just took out too many trees. We had to get rid of
the
them.
neighbor down the hill. But if you look at that, they did what they said they do. They graded it and then they raised it right before it went down a little bit to the neighbor's yards.
I know there's like 3 still.
Still in there, did he get them?
Yeah, well, I think the disease is.
They let the people come in and,
Some of them, people just want to
I found that. Do you need a copy? It's your certificate that you passed.
Okay.
So is that training we're supposed to take?
To be chairman. I'm gonna have to be on the board.
He's doing it for the sport.
Yeah.
Put that right next to your GC, you know.
I've never eaten a truffle. People say they're good. I hear it's bony.
Yeah. So we had smaller ones where we just put them right on the grill. Bake them on the grill.
Did you get that after your class, after you took the class, or?
They've been good.
I think I got one after I took the.
Yeah, they've got that elevator. They have a bunch of
I'm pretty sure I got one.
yappy dogs.
Does it look like they're doing
You know, it's 9:35.
Redoing that right
Uh-oh, like, there's like the umpires going out
two
there.
more kids. Mike just
That's
retired.
chatting on the mound.
Can't imagine it's a bigger house. Then he just expects their kids to say they're about to just
I feel like the red,
You hope that the red button calls on. Mario doesn't.
He doesn't.
You can't hear it.
Why the Mariano Rivera? He's been around.
He's consistent. He's consistent. Well, he is the closer. I can't bring him in. He is the closer. He is the closer.
I think as chairman, you can endorse that over.
There's somebody there on the Western State.
oh, good, keeping me, you know, I'm a little stutter a little bit because I'm only getting over sleeps.
I really don't know. I'm thinking like 8 or maybe 8, at least 8. You must be what, 12? 13, 14.
I don't think they're shutting off. I think his screen doesn't shut off.
Work for AP prior to Starbucks? Did you
just
just
have to
say?
his mouth.
I was gonna say, somebody wiggle his mouse.
MP.
That one looks odd.
For 18 years.
Wow. Well, that's wow.
Well, I think
On
it's
locating
screen
places,
timeout.
or what did you do? Okay.
In high school.
Wiggle his mouse. Wake up the screen
Just a little switch. Maybe use them in raw, right?
before all the TVs turn off.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, well,
Said descending stretch.
I love Harry Potter. That's a weird password. Just kidding.
It's like,
What have you decided?
Thank you for that brief recess. We've heard the suggestions that have been made. You've heard what I feel we can and can't agree to. We were pleased to see the chief's letter. The board wants to hear from the chief. Obviously, we would abide by that, so you could hear further comment from him. In light of his letter, we understand if you want to hear from Chief Henn, you control the hearing, and we certainly don't have a problem with your hearing from Chief Henn.
Okay. Only if you would like to speak. Chief?
Sure.
Good. And you were previously sworn in on this application, so no need to be sworn in again, right?
Yes.
Turn that microphone around towards you.
No.
I don't know if you want me to answer
Yeah,
questions.
just start talking.
Just start talking.
well, I guess I have just a question maybe to direct. Like, I mean, you've heard everything we've had to say, and we've read your letter, and you've heard what the applicant has had to say, and heard some ideas. Thoughts?
So it certainly, we certainly spent a lot of time over the previous months meeting with Erickson and meeting with the county in order to facilitate some type of plan. We can't, the county is not in a position to commit the resources now to that plan, right? So the ambulance issue does still, permeate, through. I think, the the spirit of my letter's intention was to advise the board to be thinking about exactly what was read, right? And that the board should, in my opinion, should contemplate something concrete from the expectation of a volume issue, right? So a volume reduction issue. The one important thing, I have a bunch of notes, and I just want to make sure that we understand. So the ambulance, when they discussed, and Mr. Pantel certainly, offer an opinion here, but the parking spot that is being offered can't be occupied. It can be occupied by Atlantic, but that Atlantic ambulance won't respond to calls for service in the Borough of New Providence. So while the third-party ambulance spot, if it was occupied by Union County, could go to places other than Lantern Hill, just to be clear there, because I think that was, I just want to make sure that that's accurate. So from the perspective of how we get to a resolution on Lantern Hill's commitment, I think that I think we've banged our heads pretty hard on this issue, right? And it's my assertion, especially noted in that letter, that some type of commitment to a volume number is what is the only it's the only outcome that can positively influence our volunteer rescue squad, because maintaining current language isn't sufficient. And I think Mr. Amosball put it perfectly. When you're given a certain set of facts throughout the entire 12 years, this issue is kind of compounded on each other through, and the only issue that we've maintained is that you just have to have a third-party vendor. And that clearly, to this point, isn't going to be sufficient, I think, in order to reduce the ambulance service on the facility.
Chief, let me just understand for myself, the options are Atlantic Health or some other private health system, or the county, and that's the only other option. Those are the two options that are available besides our own local people?
Yeah, so the county, the unique situation with the county is that they wouldn't be a direct third-party vendor for Lantern Hill. They would never commit to that, right? They would be their support to our volunteer rescue squad. So as I've previously testified, the call for service comes to our jurisdiction, and then whether or not our local volunteer rescue squad can man that call oftentimes is predetermined. They know Tuesdays and Wednesdays are difficult for them to staff during the day, so they've already prearranged it with the county to handle that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. call for them.
Okay.
Oftentimes they staff, you may have seen them at the rescue squad currently right outside Borough Hall. It's advantageous for the county to take that ambulance out of their rescue squad and put it up on Mountain Avenue, because dispatching is done through GPS location of those ambulances. The closest ambulance goes.
Right.
So the further you put it away from county resources, and we are the furthest away, is the less likely that asset will be dispatched to a call in Scotch Plains, or a call in Cranford, or a call in Garwood, or a call in Mountainside. Follow me on that?
I do.
Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. I wanted to just understand what the response options are. It's either the county, Atlantic, or something like Atlantic, or our own folks.
Yeah, so I don't want the board to believe that the county is an option as an entity on its own. It's not. It's not, yeah. It is, I mean, they are acting on the behalf of our volunteer rescue squad.
Okay, that's a little, the chain of
Supplement them,
responsibilities.
supplement them.
They're supplementing us.
Supplementing you, that's what I mean.
Yes.
It's just a supplement is what you're
That's
saying,
it.
right?
On the other hand, Atlantic Healthcare is contracted.
Correct.
Chief Henn, have you had any conversations with Erickson about perhaps having their own ambulance service on site, doing any of these talks?
We have, and I'm not an expert at the rules around creating your own ambulance service. I know that there's a business decision about that. It's not I don't think it's in my purview to recommend to them that they do that. I'm glad you asked that question because I just want to make sure that you understand Pequannock, the location in Pequannock is a volunteer rescue squad. We had previously discussed this in another meeting. They are supported by, I believe it's Clara Moss hospital system, which is not run by Atlantic. That facility their volunteers do about 180 calls to that location, but they also are heavily subsidized by the ambulance service coming out of Clara Moss. So, we understand that like there's an inherent benefit by having your own ambulance company because it brings you to your own hospital system, right? Yeah. So that's substantially different than what we experience here. In the Tinton Falls location, they have multiple rescue squad facilities because of just the geographic size of that location. Not their Tinton Falls location, the actual size of Tinton Falls. The location that is stationed closest to the Erickson property there is a paid portion of their 3 ambulance services. So it supplements the whole town, but it is a paid portion of their ambulance runs.
Chief, and when you say commitment to a volume number, I think is what you said, can you just elaborate on that?
So I think that in my discussions with our EMS president, if Lantern Hill had the ability to capture like 80% of the calls that they're currently missing, i.e. through Atlantic.
Or Union County.
What's that?
Or Union County.
Well,
that's a
we don't.
supplement.
Yeah,
That's
we
a
wouldn't
supplement.
count
Okay,
that. So
okay,
I mean,
fair.
we're still basing this. I don't have. I've asked too close to this meeting for the 2024 numbers with our change to county dispatch. We don't readily have access to those numbers anymore, so we have to request it from the county. Just so I don't have the 2024 run numbers, but based upon historically what we saw in 22 and 23. We know that we're looking at about 160 to 170 calls that our ambulance is being asked to run to. So if we saw about an 80% reduction in that number, that's a number that our president believes that they can answer an adequate calls for service up to that.
But that would, so you're saying that you would hope that a future contract, if they do go the Atlantic Health route, that a future contract between Erickson and Atlantic would memorialize a number?
So I think that my opinion is that it should be Lantern Hill's obligation to want to hit that number. If they push it off
Does their current contract have a number, do you know?
I've never seen the current contract.
Okay.
So I don't.
Because the borough's not a party to that contract, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
No. I haven't asked for it. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So I can. The only thing I can tell you is that to answer your question is that if our goal here is to hit that number, or if there was a number to be hit, to push it on to Atlantic, I think is difficult because not to say that Atlantic can't do it, because certainly somebody can staff up in order to maintain a contract that might have some type of reverter clause or some type of penalty or something to that effect. But I think it's got to be Lantern Hill. They're the only ones that have the ability to actually control it.
And when you said the 80% reduction, you want the 80% reduction of what it is today, and they're about to double the size of their facility, so you would still want it to be 80% less than it is today, even though they're going to double the size of their facility. Is that what
So I think that there's I think there's a matter of growth that has to be absorbed through everybody, and that growth, even by increasing the size here, if it was, 18 to 30 calls per year, or per year. I mean, we're talking about like 3 calls a month roughly, and that doubled to 6 for our ambulance. I think that is something that our ambulance personnel have indicated that they can maintain if we're talking about, future development, right? Like, can they maintain it? We can't maintain it now at 13 or 14 calls a month. So, yeah, we can't maintain 26 to 28 calls.
Right. That's what it is.
Mr. Pantel, what is the reason that Atlantic Healthcare isn't the sole provider for you?
I don't believe they have the staffing. You heard in previous testimony that they had, that their staffing capability went down significantly during the pandemic as a result of their loss of their EMT employment role. They are beefing that up considerably, and they have been providing more service to us. But I don't think they have the capacity right now to be 100%.
They are your first call, correct?
They are, yes, because well, the way it works is that when your call goes into the 911 dispatcher, if Atlantic Health is on the list there as having available service at that time, because the dispatcher knows who has availability and who does not, then Atlantic Health should be getting that call for service.
Almost. So the 911 call comes in, it goes to our county dispatch. If the call geolocates to Lantern Hill, it's immediately pushed to Atlantic's dispatch. Call's disconnected and we're done, right? It doesn't come back to us until so county dispatch doesn't know Atlantic's availability at that moment. They know when they get a call back that says, we can't staff that call, our resources are already out, you guys have to go to your volunteer rescue squad.
So the first call is always being shifted to Atlantic Health. That's a good thing, right?
For an ambulance request.
For an ambulance request, right? When that's what we're talking about, is ambulance requests, right? So 911 call comes in every single time, and we're going to assume they know it's at Lantern Hill, right? Geolocated. Every single time it goes to Atlantic Health, and that's a good thing, right? But because of the pandemic and staffing issues, Atlantic Health can't respond 100% of the time. That's a bad thing. It sounds like, based on the numbers, what are they, responding roughly 50% of the time?
I don't have the exact numbers right in front of me, but it could be in that order.
Mr. Tobia said that we're talking about one call a day, right? And the numbers that Chief Hedden gave previously show us getting close to 160 coming to the town per year. So 160 to 180, it's roughly half of 360, so sounds like roughly half, right? Just rough numbers. But for us, for the town, that's 25% of our volume, right? So we want to see that reduced. It's a public safety thing, so maybe if the county does put something up there, they're not dedicated to you, right? They're only acting as a supplement to us, but that's good, right? Because that's basically just making our EMS bigger, right? Although they could be answering calls for Berkeley Heights as well, right? Because that's also the far reaches of Union County. Maybe not Summit because it's better, get better coverage from private services and Atlantic Health, maybe not. But again, it comes down to the question of what are you guys willing to commit? Because that's what I'm hearing Chief Hedden say is lots of good stuff, lots of great momentum. The workflow itself sounds like it's good and healthy, right? Calls always go to Atlantic Health, and then Atlantic Health can say, I'm sorry, we don't have the people, please send someone else, and then either the county or probably New Providence first, and then the county second if New Providence can't respond. But it's the concrete thing, right? Lines in the sand. So if you can't make a concrete commitment via SLAs, right, and penalties in your contract, again, nobody's seen your contract, so we don't know. What commitments can you make to us, creating a line in the sand that says, we are committed to making this work? I believe you, Chief Hedden believes you. I think we all believe you're trying to make this work. What kind of commitment can you make, and what kind of line in the sand are you willing to establish with us that prevents this from growing exponentially to a point that somebody in town dies because everybody's up at Lantern Hill servicing calls?
Yeah, by the way, that last characterization I don't think is what would really happen. You suggest someone else dies because of someone's going to a Lantern Hill call.
No, I'm being dramatic, but at the end of the day, yeah, that's kind of what would happen.
Well, not really, because I think Chief Hedden would agree that besides Atlantic Health and Union County and New Providence, there's mutual aid in place with other adjoining municipalities. As New Providence, I'm sure from time to time, may provide mutual aid going to municipalities other than just New Providence. I know that Berkeley Heights sometimes will lend support. There are other services outside of New Providence that may from time to time lend support. We're not looking to that as a primary source, but it's not as if, well, if Atlantic Health is busy and Union County is busy, there's no one to answer a call in New Providence. that doesn't happen. That there are other mutual aid systems in place so that there will be an answer to the call in New Providence. That's the way it's set to work up. I don't think it's fair to characterize it as saying, someone else outside New Providence is going to die because of a call to Lantern Hill, or for that matter.
Everything else I said up until my last sentence is still valid. So let's take my drama out of it, okay? We're focusing on that when that's not the problem. Let's get to a resolution here. What is your? What are you guys willing to do?
Well, we clearly want to do that. I do think that we are going to need some additional time to address the points that have raised tonight. Frankly, we didn't anticipate that the discussion would go in the direction that it did this evening on this issue, in light of the memo that we had from Chief Henn. But we understand, obviously, what's transpired, and I do think that we're going to need some additional time to respond to what has been raised so that we can try to come up with a solution that works for everybody. And not the least of which, maybe, I'm sure it will involve some further dialogue with Union County. You can see we have a very serious commitment of time and money and professional resources that have been devoted to this project. So the last thing we want to do is walk away from it. But I just can't envision a solution being reached tonight.
Chief Henn, another question for you. So your first letter was, I think, very, very direct that there's a problem. Is that fair to say? The language you used was there's a substantial detriment. And I'm sure that was specific language that you chose. When I read your letter here, it definitely and the attorney for Erickson is definitely saying, like, it's pretty positive, and I think it is. It's generally saying, hey, we've worked together. We're making progress, and I don't argue with that. I think you are making progress. I think I don't doubt that at all. But I think what's missing from this second letter is the kind of clarity that you've resolved the problem. And is it fair to say, Chief, that this issue is still unresolved in your mind as far as a resolution about the ambulance service?
I believe that the parties that have come to the table, Lantern Hill and the county and the borough, have certainly endeavored to plan for staffing in the long term. The short term is difficult, that we don't have a solution to at this point. But I am confident that the county has heard our needs here in New Providence. That they understand the desire to have more county employees here working to staff ambulances. I understand that they also have budgets that they're up against, that they have to upfit ambulances and staff up, and that just can't be done in 1 or 2 budget cycles. It takes more time to do that.
And to the attorneys here for Erickson, I guess what I don't understand is, all I was suggesting is, if everything you say actually happens, I'm certainly not suggesting that you have to have your own ambulance service. I'm just simply saying, I asked you before why, I just want to get more clarity on that. But I guess what I'm saying is, if all these things that you say you're confident will happen, then great. Then in a couple of years, the chief of police, the borough administrator, and the mayor sign off on it, and you're good to go. I guess what I don't understand is why the hesitancy if you're not confident. It makes it seem like you're actually not confident that this is going to happen.
Well, the reason for what you're characterizing as hesitancy, I suppose, is that this is, in essence, a regional issue. We don't completely control even the likes of Atlantic Health. We have agreements with them, but Atlantic Health is not totally under the control of Erickson, as you might imagine. The county certainly is not totally under the control of Erickson. So, and this is an issue that affects not only New Providence, there are other communities. Berkeley Heights is having, I understand, a couple thousand newer units coming down the pike as a result of the Mount Laurel decision. So they're going to have their own issues if they don't already have some issues along these lines. So we just, it's good to be king, I suppose, but we're not suggesting that I'm the king and that Erickson is necessarily the king when it comes to every single issue. So we don't totally control it. And I'm sure you could appreciate, if you put yourself in our shoes, that we can do as much as we're doing, but we can't put ourselves in a situation where we're 1/3, 1/4, 1/2 built out, and then we have to stop dead because we're not reaching X percentage of an aspirational goal for service. So that's, I think, the shortest answer as I can give you,
Yeah.
Mr. Rossi, to your question. We just don't totally control it.
I feel though,
Pentel,
sorry, if I could just follow up.
To be fair
Okay.
to that question, this is your project that you want to do, and if you want to get to what you want to do, you have to figure out the solution that'll convince us that you can do it. So far, you haven't.
Well, you didn't hear me say tonight that I've drawn a line in the sand. I think what
No.
you heard is that, A, we're trying like the Dickens.
I get
B,
all that. Sir, I
wanted to hear
get it.
from Chief Henn.
No.
C, I've asked for some additional time to try to come to what you are alluding to, which is a solution that works for everybody.
Right, and it's because the project is yours and you want it,
Right.
it's incumbent upon you to figure out how to make it work.
Right, but the question was, why can't I just sit here and agree to X percent?
Oh, I-
Actually, no, that wasn't my question. I didn't even say about a percentage. I don't know what the percentage is, and as I stand here, I'm not sure if anyone does. All I'm saying is, at a point in the future, if 1 to 3 individuals in the town borough feel that you're good to go, you're good to go. In the same way they have to sign off on a whole host of other things. And you don't have full control over the county road either, but you're willing to make that a stipulation. So I think maybe I belabored this here, but I just want to be clear for the public that all I'm suggesting is having some type of teeth to, if everything happens like you say, then you're good to go. And the fact that you're unwilling to, at this point at least, to agree to that doesn't really make sense to me. But I respect the fact that you want to go back and have a plan, and I do want to say that you've clearly worked on it, which I appreciate.
Yeah, well, thank you. And county situation is not quite analogous because there are very clear ordinance requirements that the county has adopted with respect to site plan approvals. There's no guarantees you get from point A to B, but it's a process that we're all familiar with and pretty comfortable with.
That's fair.
So there's always risk involved, but we're prepared to take that risk. This is a very totally open-ended situation, not governed by ordinance, statute, et cetera. So it's not quite analogous. But I understand
Understood,
your point, and I think you understand the point I'm making.
Thank you.
too.
Chief, do you have any perspective on the left-hand lane or left-hand, or, is that subject to change with Nokia moving out to New Brunswick and, that's, that whole property across the street?
Yeah, so just to want to add one thing
Okay,
to
go
what
ahead,
Mr.
sorry.
Pantel said. I don't want the board to infer in my letter that the percentage is the only way out here.
Agreed.
I think you make a good point. The language of you have to have a third-party vendor is not sufficient anymore, right?
Right.
And we do need to come up with some solution on that point. Along this ambulance line, I just want to add to the board too. If the parking spot is approved, whether it's that parking spot or another parking spot, there needs to be availability to electricity for ambulances, because they have to warm blocks, charge. That's one of the reasons why our ambulance, Union County staffs at our location, because they have access to that, so they do need access to that. As it goes to the left turn, I definitely would ask that the board make sure we clarify when that left turn is, because from my perspective out there, it's either at the end of the building of 2 buildings, or it could be at the end of the building of the 3rd building, or it's someplace in between. There's language, it's on page 27 of 2020 2021, 24, item 69, that should be addressed as to specifically when that left turn lane would move forward.
I think we
Now-
got a little clarification on that. That left turn lane has to be in before they're allowed to put a shovel in the ground on building number 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has to be approved before we put that shovel in the ground.
Yeah,
It would
that's
have to be built before that third building is occupied.
So
It
that.
has to be built.
Yeah, so
to
my,
be
that,
built before it's
that's where my
occupied.
concern was, I'm sorry, so maybe that clarified it. So like, the testimony was 3 to 5 years for the building of those two buildings, and I would have to believe that the applicant can get site plan approval well prior to 3 to 5 years.
That's what
right?
I brought up earlier.
Yeah.
They came back and said, hey,
So I will tell you, in my discussions with the county separately, right, the county and the assistant engineer told me that they support what the board's resolution would show. If the board approved a left turn lane on Mountain Avenue, as they find it as a condition of approval, that they would support that in their approvals at the planning board.
Would they be willing to put a time on that as well? Like if we said we want it done before building 1 is,
So I never even broached the subject with them because I didn't think to. I just, I looked at it from I didn't know it was a condition of I didn't look hard enough at it as being a condition in the previous approval. And the reality of, I see it as a safety issue. I think it was kind of questioned that it could be, like, why wait? If it's a safety issue, then why not just do it as part of your construction phase? I'll leave it to the board to make that decision.
but you got the opinion or impression from the people at the county that
That they would support whatever this board approved. That, and that would be, however it used to be.
Did you get that impression, Mr. Pantel?
I got the impression that they were fine with the condition which was put in the first resolution, which is that it has to be installed before occupancy of the third building, absolutely, number one. Number two, we agreed earlier this evening to accelerate that and from the standpoint of requiring that we have that site plan approval from the county in place before we get a building permit for the third building. And we still would build that left turn lane before we got a CO for the third building, which is consistent with your prior approval, but it adds the requirement that before we get that building permit for the third building, we have to have the county site plan approval in place.
Is there a hardship in us requesting that you have that left turn lane in before you begin building 1?
Yes,
And what is that?
yes. Well, it's already been analyzed from a traffic perspective and recognizing the traffic studies that we submitted and in connection with the approval that was done in 2021, that the timeline that I just outlined is workable. The county indicated to us that they may not be ready to go with their plan, and it makes no sense for us to go ahead with our plan if they're gonna be doing something inconsistent with it, going from, say, if we're gonna be a 5-lane roadway there, if they're gonna want a 3-lane roadway, they're just telling us they need more time, and that they are okay, however, with what has already been approved. So we can't, we really don't wanna bollocks up the current approval with a requirement that says it has to happen before the first building.
but if it's a safety issue now, why wait?
Well, I think you've heard that.
And with
there's-
construction, Mr.
Well,
Pantel.
it's not a safety issue now, the standpoint, that's not really borne out by the data. You have far more accidents that happen at South Street and Mountain Avenue than have happened at our Mountain Avenue driveway. I think there was like 1 or 2 accidents that were, according to the testimony and police reports that were obtained at our driveway versus a multiple of that at South Street and Mountain Avenue where there's a traffic light. So I don't think it's fair to say is that we have an unsafe condition right now at our driveway. It's been operating for, I don't know how many years, probably 12, 14 years.
But do you think the start of construction will, and I know that you want to bring your construction vehicles in another route, but they missed the turn and they now have to make a left onto your property. I mean, I like what Chairman said, is just, could it be done prior to, or at the start of construction?
Well, again, I'm not in a position, as I sit here now, to
Okay.
agree to a change in that to all of a sudden make that the first building, especially in light of the testimony that we presented for this hearing and for the prior hearing. It's as if we're just, putting all that off to the side and let's just, scrap that if we want.
No, we're not putting off the side. It's just the same thing. On day one of first phase, I asked if we could have an ambulance on site. And you can go back and listen to the recordings, and here we are, years later, still bickering about that. So, and just listening to Chief's end comments now, Mr. Pantel, made me think about the left hand and the safety of it, combined with the construction.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but would hope you could understand as well that we didn't just pick a number out of the hat. When this was agreed to and approved on the first go-around and when it was testified to in connection with this application. So,
Can I answer your question to me?
Yes.
So, as it relates to the corridor improvement grant that I've seen conceptually and we've discussed previously, I will say that conceptual plan was done at least prior to the borough's knowledge of the sale of the Nokia property. I can't say that the county wasn't involved and that they weren't aware that that property was under review for sale. And it's very possible that they did, considering that there was an application for that. But as we've reviewed it, we don't see, the borough doesn't see the benefit at this time of having a center turning lane on Mountain Avenue. There's just not infrastructure there along that stretch, Diamond Hill to South Street, to support it at this point. However, there are many years ahead from what we're trying to plan for on that.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that having the left turn site plan approved before the permit for Building 3 is drawn seems reasonable, because what you just said, this may change, and Mr. Pantel previously saying, if the county changes their mind, we'll go with that. I don't think we have no exposure there. I think.
Well, and also,
I think that's a very reasonable thing. If the county changes their minds, it's incumbent upon you to follow what they say.
it's their jurisdiction.
Yeah,
Their approval.
I don't have any
Whatever they
problem with that.
They might even say it later. They're not gonna say it later.
No, I understand.
Whatever they say, we have to do.
There's two things happening. One is that it's a little bit in flux, per what Chief just said, and you're at the behest of the county anyway, so let it just stand there. We have a number that's reasonable now, I would just leave it.
And on this, now that we're not directing all traffic to the main entrance as we were previously, the South Street entrance, can anyone enter through that, deliveries, or are you going to have signs of like recommendations, or?
No, anyone will be able to enter on South Street as well as on Mountain Avenue.
That is the state today, is that right?
Yes, and employees and residents only at South Gate driveway.
And if you enter through the South Street entrance, you can get anywhere in the complex, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Can those delivery vans get to those two spaces easily enough getting in the South Street entrance
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd want to give the public a chance to ask any questions of Mr. Tobia's testimony, because that's, yes, public, yes.
Say public?
Yes.
I did.
Good.
And this is for questions of Mr. Toby.
Yes, this is questions only, not comments, you right? You've been through this before.
I will save my comments.
Your name and address, please.
Alan Swanson, 47 Overhill Road.
Microphone.
I have a number of...
Alan, make sure you use the microphone.
Right down to your face.
Of all the people to not use the microphone properly, I'm not the one because I'm technically, functionally deaf.
What's your question?
Building 2.2, that's the building that will house the 85 healthcare units, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh.
No, what we said, in neighborhood 2 has the same option that neighborhood 1 has, where 45 independent living units could be converted in whole or in part to 85 healthcare units. That can happen in neighborhood 1 or neighborhood 2 or in some combination of the two neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. What is the anticipated patient client base that you're looking for in the healthcare units?
Well, right now, there are 85 healthcare units in neighborhood 1, and potentially that could go to 170 if the full conversion that we described takes place.
No, I mean, what patient base are you looking at? What kinds of patients are you anticipating coming into it?
The patients in assisted living would be those that can't quite take care of their daily needs. They might need assistance with changing clothes, they might need assistance with the toilet, but they are not at the same level of care that somebody in a nursing wing would need. They're not necessarily in need of memory care either. So it's a gradation of care, and it's also specific types of care. We have assisted living, and we have nursing units, and we have memory care units.
So it's not really a rehab unit. It's a...
Well, nursing care certainly can be, because you have people who have had surgeries, they have to go into a nursing care unit for some rehabilitation, and then they can return to their independent living units. Same thing, they could go to assisted living after surgery or after an illness, and they can bounce back and come back to an independent living unit. That does happen.
The reason I ask is that the patient base makes a difference as to what, related to the parking that you were talking about earlier in terms of your testimony. And I guess it's not really clear. My career was as an administrator in this kind of a unit in rehab. That's why I bring it up.
Well, let me just respond if I could, is that the required number of spaces combined for neighborhoods 1 and 2 would be 1,056. It takes into account the parking requirements of the ordinance and just including those applicable to healthcare units. And we're providing 1,316 or maybe 1,322 parking spaces. So there will be a very significant excess of parking spaces provided as opposed to those technically required. So regardless of exactly what's going on in the assisted living units and nursing units, we will have plenty of parking.
I guess where I'm heading with this is that depending on the patient population in the healthcare units, what would you anticipate might be the visitation rate if applying to maybe other units that you have in the Erickson?
The parking counts the parking requirements take into account potential visitors as well as employees and as well as residents. So we're in excess of close to 300 parking spaces. So I don't think that regardless of the exact mix that we're going to have, depending upon the unit conversions, we'll still have ample parking. So I wouldn't be concerned about that.
Thank you. I'm not concerned. I think your clarification is very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The other thing related to the parking, and this was a question that actually I asked all the way back, I think, in October. And this relates to the question that I asked was, there was a fire down the street here at a single family residence that I believe that there were 7 towns that responded to the fire, all the way from Plainfield even. And my question back then was, looking at the parking situation that you've described tonight, if there were obviously a fire at a facility like Lantern Hill would be a serious occurrence in this area, and I would suspect that there would be a rather large response depending on the kind of call that came in. And my question back then, and I guess it remains, is I'm wondering if you had 7 towns respond to a fire call at the Lantern Hill facility, I'm wondering where the emergency vehicles would be able to go in order to address
So
the
I believe
emergency.
that testimony was previously handled by our engineer, Mr. Strecker. This question already came up along those lines, number one. Number two, bear in mind that a very substantial portion of these parking spaces are in parking garage. It's not as if we have 1,300 surface parking spaces. So you're going to have, the site circulation, I think accommodates fire trucks. If the board wants to go back to Mr. Strecker on that question, we can do that. He's here, but I don't think it's really called for at this point. These are supposed to be questions for Mr. Tobia.
Right. No, the board's satisfied that the fire access is adequate. We have, borough officials that look at these plans, and they've had no comments in the negative toward that. So.
I think you're right, Mr. Chairman. We looked at that when the circulation, Alan, was in being questioned for exactly that reason, and we were satisfied that for fire response that the road system can handle any existing and new responses to the level that you're suggesting. We talked about that.
I believe Chief Waco was here for one of the
Yeah.
hearings,
Yeah,
right?
he was.
We heard from
And we
fire
heard from-
officials, and they said everything was
Chief
is
Waco
good.
was here, yeah. So,
Okay.
is there some other?
I won't comment since I'm not allowed to.
Right.
No.
I would comment right now, but I won't. Thank you
We
very
asked the
much.
same- We asked the same question, and we
Thank
were
you.
satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience have any
Thank you.
questions?
Appreciate it.
No other questions? You have a question? Yeah, come on up. And your name and address, please?
I'm sorry?
Name and address, please?
Howard Meyer, 71 Division Avenue.
Sir, please spell your last name for me.
I'm sorry?
Please spell your last name.
M-E-Y-E-R.
M-E-Y-E-R.
Hal?
Howard.
Howard.
I'm, just have a couple of questions with respect to some of the EMS issues that you discussed. You noted that you spoke to the county. Do you have any guarantee or any way of guaranteeing that the county would be able to meet their commitment to increase the availability of county units in the western part of Union County? Or is it just simply that something that the county said that they would endeavor to do?
We didn't say that there was a guarantee.
So it's just something that the county said that they
No,
would,
we
they
said that
would work towards?
We said that we are exploring the situation with the county,
Mhm.
and that the county has recognized that there is a need in this area.
Mhm.
But we certainly didn't say that there was any guarantee of anything in particular
Okay.
at this point.
And based on your earlier point that you average about one ambulance call a day, do you have any verifiable report that can provide or show that Lantern Hill has an average of 365 EMS calls to their facility on average of, let's say, for 20, 21, 22, 23, or however long you've been open, up through the end of March?
Some of those data points have been provided.
Microphone.
Through testimony. Some of those data points have been provided through testimony, as well as to borough officials. We've been keeping track of all the calls.
Okay, but again, I'm asking, do you have that in a report, or is it simply verbal?
No, I think there were data sheets that were presented.
So that
Not just
that the
verbal.
board has them?
They should all be in the record.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Tobia? No? Okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Pentel?
No.
Okay. Can I bring up one thing it's going to seem so moot based on these life-threatening situations we've been discussing tonight, but I brought it up in the past and I haven't heard anything further about it, which is the noise from the pickleball courts that are providing.
Yes,
providing.
sure.
So.
Glad you asked me.
No, I'm not so sure you are.
Yes.
You have something to say about it? And then I'll
Yeah,
ask my
absolutely.
questions. Go ahead.
So we've looked at that issue and looked carefully at the borough's noise control ordinance. You have a pretty comprehensive noise control ordinance, which we believe was approved by DEP. It's a performance standard that has to be met 24/7, 365. Bearing in mind that the pickleball court is not a 24/7, 365 operation. It's not lit, so it will not be happening after dusk, number one, and obviously during the winter months, et cetera, there won't be outdoor pickleball out there. But it's a performance standard. It's not a zoning ordinance, it's not a land use ordinance, it's not a site plan ordinance. It's like any other performance standard. Sometimes you have performance standard on odors, on smoke, on vapors, on emissions, on the amount of idling that a truck can conduct on property. These are all performance standards that are the law that we have to comply with. So we have no problem with a site plan approval that would say that the operation of the pickleball court will at all times be subject to compliance with the applicable noise ordinance of the town. If there proves to be a violation of that, we have to deal with it, either by mitigating measures, such as a sound wall, such as sometimes there's special equipment that can be used on a pickleball court that have noise reduction paddles and the like. And from the information that were provided to us in these articles that mentioned distances and mitigation, we did see that, at least in one of the articles, it was suggested that if you're at 200 feet away, it's going to be 64 decibels of noise. Here we're more than 200 feet away and from nearest residential boundary, and the impulse limitation in the ordinance was 80 decibels, so we believe we would be in compliance with that in any event. But I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm not an acoustical engineer, but I know I am a lawyer though, and I know that that is a performance standard, not a zoning standard, and it's not incumbent upon us, I believe, to come up with acoustical studies at this point and engage in a whole debate about that whole process. The risk is on us. If we don't comply with it, we have to undertake mitigating measures or cease our operation or be subject to a penalty in accordance with whatever the ordinance might provide.
I understand that, but in the vein of being a good neighbor, and you're backing up to a house that's well over $2 million with a swimming pool in their backyard, and you're going to be clicking back and forth all summer long. According to the original testimony, these are going to be used continually, or extremely well used. I don't remember what the terminology exactly was.
One doesn't know for sure, but we can assume there'll be a fair amount of use in the summer.
So in the vein of being a good neighbor, you're putting hundreds of, who knows how many millions of dollars into this project. Right. Could you not consider an acoustic wall of some sort?
Well, again, as I sit here right now, obviously I can't change what I've just indicated. And we don't know that it will necessarily be required. We don't even know if there will be complaints in light of what has happened here, in light of the distance, in light of the trees in between the properties.
Trees are not a sound barrier.
I really don't know that there's even going to be a complaint. And if there is a complaint, we absolutely have to deal with it. The noise control officer for acting on behalf of the borough will be very blunt. This is what we've measured, and you guys got to comply. And if it means a sound wall, so be it. But I don't think it's appropriate to require one just in case there is an issue at this point. We don't believe that there would be, but if there is, onus is on us.
Would you be willing to agree to some sort of a remediation of it if there was a complaint?
Yes.
Regardless of what the town's ordinance says? The town's ordinance may have something to do with certain decibels.
Now, if there's a complaint showing that we're in violation of your ordinance, yes, we would agree to a remediation or cessation obligation.
That's what I'm saying.
But if it's just somebody happens to be
happens to be at their pool all summer long and hearing the noise.
Somebody hears, one pickleball ping, and they'll decide they're going to file a complaint.
If you hear one, you're going to hear two.
I understand, but we can't be.
Depends how good they are.
It can't be a princess in the pea sort of situation where, we're well below the permissible noise levels, may even be below ambient noise levels that you have. It's not as if somebody in a $2 million house or $600,000 house has no ambient noise levels in their backyard, swimming pool or not.
Yeah.
In fact, with a swimming pool, they might have more ambient noise level going on.
Yeah, I assume you looked over all the stuff that was sent over, but all these other towns that this stuff referred to have had pickleball courts near residences, and they've come up with these new ordinances based on those situations where those noises have bothered the neighbors. We don't have that in this town. Our pickleball courts are downtown where the tennis courts are and the basketball courts and the swimming pool is, and it's not bothering anybody. So this is in a residential neighborhood. You back up to a multi-million-dollar residence, and so we don't have that ordinance yet, agreed.
Right.
But we would very well might look for it in the future, and I don't want this to be the test case for those few people.
Right.
He does.
Well, believe me, I'm not looking for any test cases. I think what I'm suggesting is certainly reasonable, that you have already in place a pretty tough and comprehensive noise ordinance. I think in some respects it might even be stricter than the DEP regulations, but it's been approved by the DEP, so we have to comply with it. And if we have to do a sound wall down the road, we'll do it. But I hear what you're saying, so we're gonna hopefully be taking a break between now and a subsequent meeting, so I'm not sitting here ignoring that. I'll certainly have further discussion about it.
Yeah, I think, I just want to add to your comment about the pickleball courts, because I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, I'm like, noise happens, and we have noise ordinances that say you can't have noise higher than a certain number of decibels during certain hours, right? On the other hand, I think this is somewhat different from the kind of noises that were being considered when that ordinance was created, right? In that, you're thinking about landscaping equipment, you're thinking about people playing radios at parties, you're thinking about commercial properties that are doing manufacturing, that create impulsive noises that leak from the building and become annoying and nuisances to the neighbors. For the most part, though, those are things that last an hour, 2 hours, once or twice a week, right? Very few properties are being landscaped 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. The noise of the pickleball court in and of itself isn't that big of a deal. It's the fact that it's literally click, clack, click, clack, click, clack for hours and hours and hours and hours every single day the weather's nice, right? I mean, you can imagine that's a different thing. So there's another part of me that says, you're right, oh boy, that could be really, really annoying, and I could see our council and our planning board thinking, wait, we gotta catch up here and make a specific ordinance. So I'm not gonna tell you what to do, I'm gonna tell you to think about it, think about being a good neighbor and how can you mitigate that. Is it move the pickleball court to the Mountain Avenue side where noise is only gonna bother the residents? And at that point, your argument about there's a noise ordinance turns right back around on you, and your residents can put up with whatever the ordinance says they can put up with, right? So put it on the Mountain Avenue side. Or leave it where it is, as far away from your own residents as possible, closer to the other residents, and put up a sound wall or mitigate it in some way. But do really think about it, because I think our chairman makes a very good point about this isn't just noise. And we do have a strong noise ordinance, and it's, I swear to God, look at our Facebook community group and you'll see it's brought up probably once a week by somebody going, why are they cutting down a tree at 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday, right? Or running a leaf blower, or whatever, right? The other thing is,
We'll definitely
yeah,
take that
just
under
consider it.
advisement.
I think,
Take it under advisement.
yeah, good neighbors, good sound walls make good neighbors.
We need another date for another hearing.
Yes, we do.
So the first available date would be June 3rd? I can't be here. You can't be here for that?
Let's get
Next one is June 17th?
It's a month away. You where? June 3rd, and what's the next?
June 3rd's no good.
Date
June
after that?
June 17th.
June 3rd or 17th?
No, June 17th, not June 3rd.
Oh, not June 3rd.
I'm out of town.
You're out of town.
Sorry.
Okay. So is Mr. Toby, actually.
Do the board members have a say in this?
Yes, we do need you because.
We need some people, right?
We need all of us.
I won't be able, I won't be able to make that June 17th.
You won't be able to make June 17th.
I will not be able to make that.
June 17th, you can't make it.
No.
Which leaves us with only 6
That's
members to
bad.
vote. There's no tiebreaker.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Yeah, but we don't have anybody that we can read in for a 7th.
I missed my son's birthday dinner for this.
What's the 7th?
No, I said we won't have a 7th person to
We
break a
need-
potential
Oh,
tie,
If there's a-
because Chris can't be read in because he's recused.
Right.
You're saying you have an issue on the 17th?
Steve does.
Well, there'll only be 6 members, so you run the risk of a tie.
Well, you have more than the risk of a tie. A tie
Yeah,
is
it's
no
a,
vote.
you need, yeah,
You
that's
need
what I'm
5
saying.
votes.
Yeah, we need,
So I need a 5-to-1 vote
I mean-
on the 17th.
I'd be willing to do it, have we done a special day before other than a Monday? We can do that too, right? Is that an option if we need? I mean, since I'm the one that can't be here, I'm willing to do that if necessary, so.
What about going beyond, or is that too difficult, going further out?
Next one is July 1st.
I will likely be in Lake George in July 1st.
Yeah, that's, we're getting into 4th of July then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can respect that.
And I'll be away the following meeting.
What about a special?
What about, I agree, Mr. I mean, I'm willing to come in a special night.
I'll do a special meeting.
I'm fine with that.
I got no life, I'm fine.
I mean, is there
Anytime you want.
Can we do a special meeting on an in-between Monday?
How about June 10th?
I have meetings every Monday.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry. I could do the 11th of June.
Council meets the 11th.
How about the 12th?
I haven't, still.
Maybe we can get back to them.
We can't, we have to carry to
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
It's gonna be announced.
We have to carry to a regularly scheduled meeting.
Well, we have to carry to a date.
Yeah, we have to announce the
Yeah,
date.
a date.
Oh,
The 12th? Did you say you're no good on the 12th?
For me.
Somebody have a
yeah.
calendar.
Yeah.
Can we look at a calendar?
McKinley's not available the 12th.
I can't do the 12th either.
So you can be here on
Did we talk about the 10th?
17th.
Oh, every Monday. Okay.
Well, the thing is, it's a regularly scheduled meeting, so I just don't know if I have anything on the agenda that night.
Actually, I'm good July 1st if everybody else is. I'm just, it's
Oh,
not,
okay. You sure that's not gonna change?
it's not gonna change.
Aileen's not gonna make you
Nope.
go? Okay.
No, that's, we're not. Might have Thursday home.
Yeah.
I can do
July
July-
1st is okay?
I can do the
Even though
first.
it's a
July
Monday?
1st?
But it's your regular meeting.
It's
so-
our
Oh,
meeting.
right. July 1st? July 1st?
First?
July 1st, that's your regular meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can do the first.
7 members?
as far as we know.
Unless something happens between, watch, it's gonna be me. Coming with a little bubble.
Yeah, I'm good the 1st. That's not.
Yeah, July 1st is okay.
All right. So we will carry this hearing until July 1st, 8 o'clock PM in this room, unless
Now,
otherwise
there is
noticed.
an avian flu outbreak that's starting, so, you know.
Wear a mask.
Yeah, wear a mask.
So that's,
No further notice, right?
Yep.
No further notice required.
So that's to, you just said no further
No
notice
further
required.
Are we gonna do
July
comments yet?
1st, 8 PM in this
Do
meeting.
comments yet?
No, not until the end of the hearing.
Not yet. So yes,
Correct.
July 1st, 8 o'clock, for everyone who's here, come on back if you'd like to. No further notice required.
Thank you.
You got that, Alan?
Will there be any comments tonight?
Not tonight, after the hearing, which is hopefully July 1st.
Because they haven't closed yet. They still have more testimony. Sorry.
Procedural thing.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.